I think while I lie awake and contemplate tonight are wearing me out. Well, maybe tomorrow the world will wake and get it right, but I have my doubts, yeah. Well, I designed machines of war that scream through the sky. 'Cause I, for one, I like to go to bed free at night under these stars bright. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back out. Yes, I have my doubts. But they'll wind you up and pull the cord until you're spun right out. And I don't understand. Roll the dice and raise the price to feed the machine's mouth. Call it the progress of man. And I have my doubt that we're coming out. Yes, I have my doubt. And I have my doubt that we'll make it back out. I have my doubts. So I'll drink my stuff and raise some hell and shoot my guns to the end of my time. You can have the booze and go to hell and take the guns, but I know they won't be mine. We're coming out. Yes, I have my doubts, and I have my doubts that we'll make it back up. Yes, I have my doubts. So we're all messed up and out of touch. Let's text someone who's in the other room. So don't wonder why we don't say hi or know anyone. I might as well move to the moon. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, I hope that I'm wrong. Well, the things I think while I lie awake and contemplate at night are wearing me out.
Good afternoon. Wow, another interesting news day all over the place. all over the place. I don't even really, because of all the different various news, I don't have a topic per se. I was just thinking about it just here right before the show. And I think I want to talk a little bit about this weekend's challenge, my challenge to all of you for this weekend. But I do want to talk a little bit about something that I didn't want to talk about. I don't like distractions. I really don't like distractions when it comes to like things happening in the world, news happening in the world. We've got a lot of crazy stuff going on. Mum is the word on what's going on in the Midwest as far as the crazy weather. And that's something I should probably speak to a little bit on. And, that raises a lot of questions to me. And the stories that are getting all the limelight, while they're important, I do believe that, the Midwest is up there within that top 5 stories, without a doubt. There should be something that's being covered a lot, and I mean a lot. What it is that I didn't want to talk about is the situation with Jussie Smollett. Smollett, Schmuckett, whatever his name is. This is crazy. This is also concerning. Normally, I wouldn't speak to something like this. I stay as far away from entertainers, and all that as possible. They're like a disease, and I don't want to catch it. So I try to stay away from anything and everything to do with entertainment or Hollywood. And I see this as being something that's potentially going to affect us. That is why I feel like maybe it's worth talking about. So, as you well know, no justice for Smollett, Schmuckett. They just let him go. I spoke with Steve Engel today on the phone, and I enjoy conversations with him because sometimes just bouncing stuff back and forth with him kind of clarifies things even for myself. And in conversation with him, I was talking about it, and the old saying, those in glass houses, right? The saying. And, I'm looking to this situation, and I'm thinking of the can of worms that could potentially be opened up here. It's huge. It's enormous. As you probably know, they have called on the FBI to investigate this situation. Now, I trust the FBI about as far as I can throw Rosie O'Donnell. Yeah, you get the idea. So, and plus I wouldn't want to touch that. Again, entertainer, disease, I don't want to catch it. And, I think about this, and while I don't trust the FBI, there are a lot of people that are pissed. One of those I am a little bit confused by. Rahm Emanuel, right? Obama's bitch boy. I'm just going to be honest, right? He is infuriated. Why? And when I run that through my mind and approach it from every possible angle, I can only find one reason why he might be upset, and that's because that's going to bring all eyes on the city of Chicago. That's the only reason why I can think. A public relations nightmare is the only reason I could think he would be upset. The chief of police, for obvious reasons, is upset. Now, while I don't support especially the Chicago police, which is known to be one of the most corrupt police departments in the nation, which is part of my next point, they're very upset and outspoken, and they want to see him charged. So the FBI is going to pick up the investigation, and of course, this could and probably will lead to federal charges from the feds, directly from the feds. That's my guess, is what's going to happen here. Now, how that could affect us is we won't be able to see Empire anymore. No, I'm kidding. I could care less. I've never seen it. Don't want to see it. How that could affect us is because, again, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, right? So, you've got the prosecutor in Chicago. You got to understand, all of Chicago is corrupt, right? Even the corruption is corrupt in Chicago. And if they start duking it out, okay, with the revealing the truth about this and that kind of way, can you even imagine? Right? So, like, if for instance, the prosecutor, or their team, I call everybody team because that's the way people act today. It's always teams, mobs. If their team, the prosecutor's team, Smollett's team, if they decide to start uncovering some truths about the city of Chicago, the police of Chicago, we already know about the black sites and stuff like that in Chicago. And if you don't know about the black sites in Chicago, you need to Google it, okay? It's where they whisk people away and do whatever the hell they want to them. It's insane. There was I believe it was a United Nations meeting or a G20 summit or something. I can't remember what it was for sure. Probably a G20 summit, something to that effect, there in Chicago. And they used one of these black sites, and they whisked up a bunch of people and threw them in there. And to hear some of the people talk about their experience while in there is horrifying. And that's nothing. That's with the eyes on them. Can you imagine what they do in these places when the eyes aren't on them? Chicago is a bad, bad place. Just the way it is. I am so glad that it's, almost on the other end of the state from us. It's still too close. It needs to be like up in Canada or something. So anyway, I know, don't plague them, right? What did they do to us? The thing is I think there's going to be a back and forth on this. And I think it's going to wind up implicating the Obamas. I think it's going to wind up implicating Chicago government, including the police force. I think it's going to go far and wide. I'm telling you, the rats are scurrying all over, whether it be in D.C., whether it be in Hollywood, wherever. The rats are scurrying. That you can thank a lot to, and don't kill the messenger, the Trump supporters. Just the truth. Right? Whether you agree with them or not, and in a lot of cases I don't. I especially don't agree with their dictatorship attitude. I especially don't agree with their provocation. Okay? But, all in all, what many of these supporters are really saying is enough is enough. And I feel that pain. Believe me, God knows I feel that pain. And, I don't think it's going to go away. I think what the Trump supporters have had was a taste, a little bit of a taste of something called freedom. It's just a taste. Don't get me wrong. Okay, they didn't actually experience any kind of freedom, right? They just put like a little droplet on their tongue. And I think that is going to explode. I do. I think that what's going to happen is there's going to be more and more restrictions put on us in this country, as we are seeing happen, whether that be through the form of taxes or laws preventing you from owning something or having something or doing something. And I think the people are going to push back. We're seeing people push back all across the country. And I think this last surge of people, mainly the people that voted for Trump, are a good indicator of that. But I think there's people on the other side that are feeling the same way too, on the blue team. I think they're feeling a lot that way too. So we'll see. But I think that this could have implications that wind up affecting each and every one of us, because the bad guys, they're losing. Well, to me, they're all bad guys, but the worst of the bad guys are losing. Okay? I don't think that the general public will realize that they're all bad guys for a little bit yet. But here's the beauty of it. That taste of freedom has already been done. So when who they think is the good guys show their true faces, and people realize they're not so good, it's too late. That's my hope. I hope I'm accurate with that. It's, I don't think it's just my hope. I think I am gauging that correctly. I really do. I think I'm gauging that correctly. We'll see. I know one thing. People in this country have had enough. I think I just read something here a little bit ago about how here in Illinois they're going to start allowing local governments to put a tax on gasoline. Right? So not only is the state wanting to ramp up the gas tax, right? And they will. They're going to ramp up registration for vehicles. They're going to ramp up the cost of renewing your driver's license. They're going to ramp up the fuel costs in the state of Illinois. But from my understanding, they're also going to give the local governments the ability to put a gas tax for themselves. Okay? People in the state of Illinois have already been absolutely taxed to death. I mean, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. If all these governors hadn't ran so many people out of this state over the past couple of decades with their taxes and with their nonsense, maybe they'd have a little more revenue coming in because there'd be more people to tax. But now there's less people to tax, so their answer to that is more taxes. Illinois is a cesspool. It really is. And it's unbelievable. It's actually like a toilet, and I think the world is getting ready to flush it, right? It's unbelievable. So keep your eyes open for that stuff. Really, truly keep your eyes open for that stuff. I said I was going to mention a little bit about what's going on in Midwest, in the Midwest, Nebraska, whatnot, with all the flooding and stuff. I think I forget how many cattle I read was lost. And incredible, was it one and a half? I don't know if it was 1.5 million cattle. I don't know. That seems like I'm recalling that number correctly, but I could be wrong. So please understand, I could be wrong. I'm trying to go by memory here. The amount of grains and stuff that have been lost is just stunning. Okay? And we're not the only ones in this boat. No pun intended. Okay? There's multiple countries around the world that have been dealing with unreal amounts of flooding and just crazy storm systems. Okay? And a lot of these countries that I'm speaking of are large food producers. Not looking good. And I'm doubling down and tripling down on my stance on pole shift. I believe it's pole shift, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's going to be much worse next year. Mark my words. We're starting summer, okay? We're starting summer of 2019. So mark it on your calendar. Mike says things will be batshit crazy. Okay? Mark that on your calendar for next year. Today for next year. And see if I'm right. See if I'm right. I've been saying this for the last 10 years, continually. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Last year, I was saying, okay, this coming year, you're going to start to see things. I'm telling you, this next year, you won't be able to deny it. Not for a second. Not for a second. The year after that, look out. Mark my words. Mark it down on the calendar. Hold me to it. By all means, hold me to it. I've been researching this stuff for way too long. I've been watching it for way too long. 17 years old, I taught myself how to safely storm. Well, I taught myself how to safely storm chase. I just didn't do it safely. Okay? But I taught myself how to storm chase. I did a lot of learning, a ton of learning, and that's what I went out and done. And I had followed weather systems ever since I was a child. And the reason why is because I was scared. Believe it or not, this kind of sounds ironic, but I was scared to death of storms when I was a child, when I was a little kid. Right? They would test. There'd be a bright sunny day. They would test the tornado sirens, right, in the town like they do the first Tuesday of every month. And I would literally run up to my teacher, and I would not accept no for an answer. I would sit on her lap until the tornado sirens quit sounding. True story. I scared to death. You want to see me? You want to see me go absolutely batshit crazy? Let me see my own blood when I was a child, or because I was, oh my God, hypochondriac like you wouldn't believe, and let me hear the tornado sirens, and I would lose my mind. Come 17 years old, I was chasing tornadoes. Not just doing that, I was doing the absolutely stupid thing of punching through the storm to get ahead of it so I could watch the storm come in on me. Yeah, I don't advise that, but I'd probably still do it if I had the chance. It's a lot of fun. And it's a rush. Part of the reason why I did it was the rush. So anyway, I've told you all of that because I just want you to know that I'm not just somebody that turned on the local weather and said, oh yeah, things are changing. No, I've followed weather my entire life. As I see weather go across the country today, I am just awestruck at how it acts and how it reacts. Okay? I've watched basically the tornado alley shift south. Okay? I've watched that happen. We used to get a good fair amount of that here, and it's moved south. I mean, don't get me wrong, we still get tornadic activity up here, quite a bit of it. But if you look closely, that band has widened and moved south a little bit to where southern parts of Mississippi and Alabama, are getting hit. Kind of odd. Not impossible, but odd. And it's happening on a regular basis now. So pay close attention to this stuff. And this year's going to be a doozy. I'm not saying that this year, piece of cake. No, this year's going to be a doozy. We're just entering storm season. This year's going to be a doozy. Next year, though, unmistakable. Unmistakable. Let's see. I mean, that's pretty much stock up. Stock up on supplies. Prep. I know, I'm not trying to fearmonger you. But I would be doing a disservice to you if I did not tell you these things. It's just a fact. Stock up. Make sure you've got food supplies. Make sure you've got, a way to filter water. enough stored water until you can get to other water that you can filter. You know the drill. Make sure you've got your stuff in order. And make sure you've got multiple sources of light. Okay? Please. We always talk about the multiple sources of fire and all these other things, but nobody really talks about light. I'm about the only one I know of that actually really talks about light. And I'm not talking about going out and buying a $300 Nightcore flashlight. Okay? I am especially not talking about that. If you do that, you're looking to impress your friends. You're not prepping. You're looking to impress somebody. Okay? Because for that same flashlight, you could have bought a dozen other flashlights that will work just as well for just as long. You don't need to go looking on the moon for your car keys when you're just trying to survive SHTF, okay? Don't buy, on another note, don't buy the cheapest, like I always recommend 18650, let me get that right. I always recommend the 18650 platform. It's a beautiful platform. The batteries hold up well. They recharge many, many, many times. It's pretty common, right? A lot of your vapors out there are very, very familiar with 18650 batteries. Chargers are cheap and easy to come by. Batteries, and by the way, with batteries, if you go 18650, don't go buy the cheap batteries, right? If you have to, I think the website's imrbatteries.com. They got good batteries. Or go to a reputable vape shop, online or a brick and mortar store. Okay, go to a reputable vape shop. That's what I suggest. The same type of batteries that people use for vaping, I suggest for a flashlight. Okay, do they need all that, amperage capability? No, it's a flashlight. Okay, but let me tell you something about that. The higher ability that your battery has, the less chemical reaction that you're demanding on the inside of that battery, because it's the less strain you're putting on that battery to perform the same task. Okay, so therefore, your battery will last longer. Just the way it is. So yes, get good quality, high drain 18650 batteries for your flashlights. But don't stop at flashlights. Okay? Make sure you have some type of an oil and wick type of lighting source. Okay? Multiple types of different, electronic or battery powered flashlights. I always recommend having some candle wick, right? Not just the little bitty 6-inch pieces or whatever. Go on eBay, you can buy 100-foot of candle wick, cotton candle wick for like less than $20. Okay? 100 feet. That lasts you a long time. And of course, candles is another thing. It's not a bad thing to get wax if you can. These are things that we should be doing. Light is an important thing. A lot of people underestimate light, especially in the prepper community. Right? If you don't think light's important, well, then you blindfold yourself and go make dinner. I didn't tell you to do that. Don't sue me for the burns. Okay? But just think about it. Think about it. If you are in a total blackout situation and, any little task that you need to perform is going to be extremely hard when you can't see. I'm not saying that you can't do it, right? But for a sighted person, that would be a hard transition to make in a moment, like in a moment's notice. Be a hard transition. So just it's an easy thing to do. Make sure you have several sources of light. As for my challenge this weekend, and I've already burned up quite a bit of time here. For my challenge this weekend, it's what I've been saying. Go through your preps. If you need to, make a list. We don't have a list. I think we need to make a list. Go through your preps. Organize your preps. Look to see if you have any holes in your preps that you can rectify. If so, rectify them. If you have holes in your preps that you cannot at this time rectify, well then guess what? That's what your list is for. Make a note of it. Make sure you have everything organized so you know where it is to a T. Have multiples. Make sure that you have multiples. One of the rules is if it's something that's in your bug out bag, it shouldn't be something that you need to use, like on a regular basis. Okay? We talked about flashlights. Don't just have the flashlight that you would carry around your house if the power goes out, with the intention of throwing that in your bug out bag. No, make sure your bug out bag's got its own flashlight. Okay, if you're not intending on bugging out, you don't have a bug out bag, but you do have supplies, you do have preps put back, make sure you have a flashlight setting there with those that you don't use. Okay, something that you never move. So make sure you have multiples of these types of items that are important. Okay, make sure that your prepping supplies or your bug out bag, that they have their own. Redundancy is very important. Very, very important. When I think about prepping, I don't just think about it to that level. I try to think about it to the level of years down the road. To give you an idea, because we all daydream, right? And so I would love to have an alternative energy setup to be able to power all of our needs. Okay? But if I had the money, I wouldn't stop there. I wouldn't just stop at having a huge battery bank and a huge solar array and several wind turbines. I wouldn't just stop there. I would have, if I had the money, another 2 sets of batteries, dry with no acid in them, stored. That way I know those batteries are going to be good. And then after the batteries I'm currently using goes bad, I replace them with a set of the dry batteries. I put the acid in them, and I'm good to go for X amount of number of years. And then have yet another set back for even after that. When I think about prepping, that's how I think. Okay? Because in a true SHTF event where things don't bounce back, you aren't going to have that opportunity to replenish those things. So you want to make sure that you can survive, and I say the word survive loosely, okay, because electricity, let's face it, is a luxury when it comes to SHTF. But make sure that you have enough to carry you on if you can do that. If you can do that. Right now, make sure, that all your main staples are taken care of. And then you can go adding on to the longevity of these different types of items like that. But I recommend, when it comes to like flashlights, have multiple flashlights. Don't put just one flashlight in your prepping supplies. Put several. Right? And just try not to lose any and use one at a time. And if that breaks or goes bad or whatever, then you can move on to the next flashlight. Which reminds me, I was going to tell you about flashlights. Although I'm telling you, you're wasting your time and your money going out and buying a $300 flashlight, don't go and buy the $12 18650 flashlight either. Please don't do that. Unless you're good at working with stuff. Me and Jen's got some flashlights, some cheap. I think I paid less than $20 for the 2 flashlights, 18650 platform. I got 2 flashlights, 2 little single cell 18650 chargers that I wouldn't trust to do anything other than throw away, and 2 trust fire batteries, okay, which aren't very trustworthy, and so I got that for less than $20. But Jen, I don't know if she remembers or not, but from time to time you'll see me taking those flashlights apart and getting them to work properly because they don't want to work right all the time. They've got real cheap switches in them, okay? And that's where the issue is cheap switches, the button switches on the tail cap. So if you're not able or know how to work on stuff like that, little fixes like that, you might want to dump at least $40 to $60 into an 18650 platform flashlight, just to give you a little bit of a reference. Okay, that is not an insanely stupid amount to spend on a flashlight at all. You know, when you start getting up in the $100 range, I'd start looking at you like, yeah, okay, whatever. I just don't see the need for it. Don't see the need for it. Yeah, but it's got the tactical bezel with the, 255,000 pound force, who cares? Does it turn on? Because that's what you need. You need a flashlight to turn on and put off light. That's what you need. Yeah, but... No, you don't. Does it turn on? So keep that in mind. And like I say, the challenge for this weekend is for everybody to get out and kind of look through their preps, make sure everything's in order, remind themselves, refamiliarize themselves with where they put things. That's important. And, if there's preps that you have that you're not experienced with, say you got a little stove for cooking or something like that, if there's something that you bought for survival purposes and you haven't used it, well, maybe take it out in the yard and use it. Depending on what it is, you might be able to use it inside. So I highly recommend that. If you've got rechargeable batteries that you've got devices that run on and stuff, take the time this weekend to charge those batteries. Okay, just put them on the charger, top them off. Check your flashlights, make sure they come on, make sure they work. Just go through your stuff. Anyway, let me go ahead and get to the news headlines. Here we go. And I would... Oh, there they are. I was going to say, and I would put on my glasses, but... Okay. I don't know if I mentioned this last night when it happened or not, but Syrian air defense repels Israeli air aggression against Aleppo. I don't know if I read that headline. I'm not sure if I did or not. U.S. calls on Russia to compel Syrians to leave area near Golan Heights. Something tells me I said something about this yesterday during the show, but I'm not positive. This is going to come back into the news today. Nobody is panicking. Rachel Maddow sheds 500,000 viewers in post-Mueller slump. Multiple victims reported in Seattle shooting. Suspect detained. Okay, that was, I think, after the show last night. There was a lockdown. Alexander County Schools, and I can't remember where the hell that is, but calm down. It was a malfunction in their alert system, their intercom system, in the school. I know a lot of the schools, including ours here, they have intercom systems in the classroom, and if you walk up and start pushing that button a bunch of times, you're going to get policed pretty quick. So apparently there was a malfunction with one of the buttons, and it did exactly that. It pressed itself a bunch of times. That's all that was over. Nothing to see here. Illinois begins issuing driver's licenses that comply with federal Real ID law. Okay. Now they've been Real ID compliant for a while now. In fact, when Jen last updated her ID, they didn't just give her an ID; it came in the mail. That's because they went through all the motions for the Real ID Act, although the ID she's got isn't technically a Real ID yet. Okay. They still have been going through the motions and getting used to the procedures and all this good stuff. So they are set up now. I just covered how Missouri is set up now. Good to go, ready to go with that. Illinois is too, and I'm sure you're going to see many, many other states falling in line as well. Who will not be falling in line with this is me. Die, you little F. Utah woman behind bars after strangling son with diabetes, police say. Absolutely mind-blowing. He is disabled. He's got a condition that's it kind of has autistic. What's the right wording here? It's kind of in the autism spectrum kind of thing, as well as his diabetes and stuff. Absolutely mind-blowing. 6 kids, I think it was. 6 or 7 kids in that home. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. So she's in jail, though, by the way. They lost that apartment that they were in as a result of all of this. And apparently he is, it says the husband has the children. So, I don't know. I don't know. I'm hoping that the case is she gets out of jail, she doesn't get to be right back with the children, is what's concerning to me. Civilian airport hit as Israel strikes area around Aleppo. Regime change ramp up. Guaido announces Venezuela-wide tactical action against Maduro. So keep an eye out on what goes on down there. Why not give Israel North and South Carolina? ? Syrian envoy asks U.S. at UN. And I see his point, right? I do see his point. I know there's a lot of people out there, with their fists in the air, 6-day war, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Who cares? It's awful confusing to me, everything that's going on with Israel and why it's so widely accepted. It makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. If people in this country hadn't traditionally been told that Israel can do no wrong, they would be raising hell. But see, the people in this country have traditionally been told, they got a right to exist, they've got a right to dominate the world. It is what it is. His question is valid. Get out of Syria first. Moscow reacts to Trump's demand to leave Venezuela. FBI reviewing suspicious dismissal of Jussie Smollett hoax charges. Bayer must pay another $80 million in Monsanto Roundup cancer trial. I can't talk, read, speak. Facebook bans all praise of white nationalism and white separatism. Running country like a business, Trump calls Venezuela company, but is it a Freudian slip? Nah, not really, because that's all they see it as. United States squabbles over new Iran sanction waivers. U.S. drug company Johnson & Johnson cleared in latest talc cancer trial. U.S. top brass warn against punishing unbending India for buying Russia's S-400 missiles. Erdogan accuses U.S. of undermining Turkish economy ahead of elections. Embarrassment to our nation, Trump rips into outrageous Jussie Smollett case. World's longest salt cave discovered at spot where Lot's wife was transformed. Let me read that again. World's longest salt cave discovered at spot where Lot's wife was transformed. Just interesting, isn't it? Boeing announces software fixes for infamous 737 MAX plane, and I find this interesting that this article's hidden because we already knew about this update. They rolled this update out a couple of weeks or so ago, and the FAA says no deal, they're still grounded. So I find it interesting that this update is back in the news again. We'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. Indian anti-satellite missile test largely a result of U.S. destroying arms control, says Moscow. Venezuela's authorities rule to ban Guaido from government service for 15 years. Lawsuit against Boeing filed in U.S. federal court over Ethiopian crash. An Arizona mom ignored doctor's orders when her sick 2-year-old started feeling better, so Child Services sent a SWAT team to break down the family's front door and take their 3 kids. Now you know why I have an attitude like I did yesterday? That's why. There's only one way it's going to stop. There's only one way it's going to stop, and it's not going to be at a ballot box. It's just not. It's time we get off our complacent asses and realize that. You know, denial is the first step. We have to realize that. I don't like it any better than anybody else. But I damn straight don't want to leave it to my children. That is wrong. That is wrong. With the amount of control, let me ask you this, with the amount of control that they are trying to achieve today in our lives, with our existence, with our hell knows, what do you think they're going to do with our grandkids? What kind of control do you think they're going to have then? That how much you love them? Just to say, I like my big screen TV. I like my paycheck. I like my fancy car. Is that worth it? Is that worth passing down pain and suffering to loved ones? Doesn't seem it to me, but I'm not a very materialistic person. Absolutely sad. That story, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to read it because I'm not going to lose. No. I read it earlier. And I'm telling you, I will lose my mind. Awful. U.S. urges transparent probe into Saudi bombing in Yemen. Ex-NSA contractor pleads guilty to massive secret data theft. And this is why all of our information shouldn't be out there for everybody to access. They shouldn't have all of our information to begin with. Okay? Are you a criminal? No? Then don't you have rights? Again, what are we passing down to our children, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren? What are we passing down to them? Anyway, you got to be careful with this stuff. I know you don't have a choice here. It's not like you have a choice in the government spying on you. Mind-blowing, though. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the monologue up, and we'll get continued on to the live show. For those that watch live shows, stay right where you are. We'll be live till 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. For those that just watch the monologue or the recording thereof and haven't unsubscribed, thank you very much. As always, God bless you. We love you. And be one with your spirit. All right, let me dig up Prepper Nurse 1 already has his video up, so let me go ahead and grab it on. I see somebody's having trouble signing up to the website, so let me put his video on and try to help them, and we'll go from there. So here's Prepper Nurse 1 with a video titled Trump Tells Russia to Get Out of Venezuela.
Hey everybody, Prepper Nurse 1 here. Today is Thursday, March 28th, 2019. A little more overcast today. Sun is out, but it's more clouds today. The wind is picking up. We're supposed to, the next several days, we're supposed to have rain. So let me try to clean this off. Hold on. Please don't mind my shirt. Anyway, I want to talk about the topic of the video real quick, and then we'll get into a few other things. So the president has basically told Russia to get out of Venezuela. I'm just like, ever heard that old saying, don't poke the bear? Well, that's a huge don't poke the bear. I mean, Venezuela wants Russia there. Venezuela does not want the United States there. So, again, I've said this before, we need to mind our own business. We need to stay right out of that. Why would we be wanting to get into a war over Venezuela? And here's a couple of the babies, Abel and Gelko. So they are loving outside. Good kittens. They're going to be big cats too. They're the two that lived from Molly's. I mean, well, we gave 2 away, and those 2 are fine. And then, you know, Slugger passed away. But those are the 2 that we have left from Molly's litter. So they're good babies. And then, of course, then we have Max down here. Alright, so anyway, back on topic, sorry. Distractions. Kitties are distractions. So, you know, we need to take care of our own business. We need to take care of our own house. You know, I've talked about this over and over and over again. I mean, we need to stop being the bully of the world, pushing our weight around, telling people what to do, because at some point what happens to a bully is somebody that has had enough of the bully is going to stand up and slap that bully in the mouth. And we don't really need that. I mean, it's like a world war or even a limited nuclear exchange would be very, very devastating, you know, to the country, to people around the world, because it wouldn't just be limited, you know, to the United States and Russia. I mean, that would jump off a whole bunch of other craziness, and we don't really need it. We just don't need that. So, but yeah, so that's you know, that's crazy stuff that's happening right now. You know, like I said, the president has stated that you know, that Russia needs to get out of Venezuela. Unbelievable! Just absolutely amazing to me that that's going on. So, anyway, so Greg was over today again, and him and I were working on the chicken coop a little bit more. So I'm going to take you over there quickly and show you what we got done here, what we were working on. Alright, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it from up here, but on top of the chicken coop there was some holes that needed to be patched. And so Greg went up there with some silicone and some tin and stuff like that and fixed the patches. They said there was 19 holes. He had got this tin off of a construction job, and so it had, when they pulled it up, it had holes, and I'll actually kind of show you here in a second what I'm talking about. Alright, so you see these holes right here on the edge? They were all the way through on the metal. So he went up there and let me see if we can see one of the patches. If you're going to be able to see it or not. No, I don't think you're going to be able to see it. But anyway, the patches where the holes were where the wood is. So he got up there and he patched those. I put the struts in here. So we got those up there. Threw a couple pieces of plywood up there just to have it up there now for up there. Not a lot of stuff is going to go up there. It's not going to be, as you can see, a lot of room. This is going to be the bottom of the ceiling, so that will be insulated in between there. And so, so we got the rest of this wall is done, obviously, and so we were working on these things today, and I did put, I moved the plywood that was over on this wall, and put insulation in there. So I got to go pick up, I'm going to pick up 2 more bats of the insulation. So I guess somebody had made a statement that Roxall is changed their name to Rockwood, I believe it's what it's called now. So I was actually looking up to see what the price was for a bat of that, and it's called Rockwood now instead of Roxall. So it was Roxul, as you can see it there upside down, but now it has changed and it is called Rockwood now. So I don't know, maybe a different company bought it and they changed the name. But anyway, so I have to pick up 2 bats of that because I want to be able to insulate, this wall here, and then we can get the plywood up on that wall. So this is the door. I had this door behind my shop sitting out there. So that is the door we're going to be putting in. I'm going to actually have to change and get a new handle because I have no idea what key would fit that in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to have to get a different handle on that so that we can, lock up the chicken coop at night so that animals, can't get in here and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's coming along, and so that's what we were working on today. And so Greg might be coming back. I'm not sure yet because he was kind of messing with the door, and so he's going to be working on that. But so those are the projects, guys. Chicken coop is coming along very nicely. Real pleased with our progress on it, and like I said, we just keep banging away. I know it's not really exciting seeing the same thing every day, so I wanted to kind of switch it up a little bit and talk about something different. But the world has gone crazy. I hope our leaders, not just here in the United States, but around the world, have enough common sense to keep us out of a war situation. It would not be good. We definitely don't need that, and so I got to turn this around. These guys are just too cute. But we need to stay out of other people's business and what's going on. I know that, like I said, I know it's all about oil. It's all about the minerals down there in Venezuela, and it's about control. That's what the United States is about. We want to control and dictate everything that happens, and so we definitely need to, like I said, we need to mind our own business. We need to take care of our own country and not worry about what other people are doing, and really focus on that. Our country is a freaking mess. It's absolutely divided, and that's perpetuated by the media. I blame them a huge amount for the division in this country, and so obviously now that there's no collusion with the president, that came out, obviously the Mueller report, and I heard, I don't know how the validity of it is, but I heard the Mueller report was actually done before the November elections and was held back and not brought out before then, so it would help the Democrats in the elections in November. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, it's it's one of those things that you hear and you don't know if it's 100% true or not. But yeah, so these things happen. And I'm going to show you down here. At my feet is Mr. Lucy. Yes, good boy. Good boy. Yeah, they're all my children. 8 cats. So people that are talking about concerns about mice, please don't have concerns about mice. Mice, squirrels, chipmunks, you name it, we don't have it because my hunters go out and they do their business. That's their job. That's what they're here for. They're great companions too. I'm not going to lie. I love my animals, but they do have a function. So, but the weather's going to be changing here. We're supposed to have rain the next 3 days. So that should be interesting. So we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. I mean, should we be involved in the Venezuela situation? Your opinion. I know people have talked about their concerns about a base being down in Venezuela with the Soviets or the Russians, and So, but like I said, it's like like I said, my thing is we need to take care of our own country. We have enough stuff going on here that's a mess that really needs to be fixed. When you have 200 miles of levees that are not holding up during a flooding period, that's what their job is. The Army Corps of Engineers was responsible for that, and they should have taken better care of that. So Just crazy stuff, guys. I mean, it's like we really need to focus on taking care of our country. We really, really do. So anyway, I hope everybody's week is going well. We've been busy, which is great. I want to get out here and get more stuff cleaned up, which I will. But yeah, it's like we've been focusing on the chicken coop and working on the wood over here. So those will be, continue to get worked on until they're done. But there's other stuff that I want to work on as well. But anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. Remember, guys, we are all in this together. That's important to remember. Remember also to hug and kiss the ones you love. Tell them every single day. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. We never know what's going to happen in this crazy world. So to tell the people that you care about every day is very, very important, okay? Also, remember STD, guys. It's one step at a time, one thing at a time, and one day at a time. Whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you can do it. The only one that's going to stop you from getting there is yourself. Nobody else can do it, okay? Really stay focused. Take care of your business, and you'll be fine. Just do the best you can, and when things jump off, then we'll deal with them at that point in time. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well, and I will talk to you all later. Prepper Nurse 1, out for now.
All right, we have one here from Suspicious Observers, his morning report titled Filament Erupts, Dark Matter Crushed, and New Episode.
Good morning, folks. I'll really have to earn your clicking the like button today as there's a ton of incredible top stories. We do have another episode of the Catastrophe series coming in a few hours. We'll begin with our star over at spaceweathernews.com. We find the last day was relatively quiet. No solar flares, no sunspots. We do have some small dark coronal holes turning through. The only eruptive behavior of the last day occurred on the northeastern limb. The filament we peeked at yesterday got anxious, lifted, broke out, and had a southern half of the prominence slide back down into the sun. Remainder pulled into the polar region. The solar wind elevated slightly overnight. It is the impact of another weak coronal hole stream, which is why the third impacting solar wind wave in 7 days hasn't even pushed the KP up out of the green. Top weather story is in New Zealand. Death, damage totals, and footage are coming in from a horrendous rainstorm that lashed the southern island. Bridge was no match for the floodwaters there. You may have heard that President Trump signed an executive order on EMPs, and while this touches the cybersecurity issue, it is also a follow-up of 2 of Obama's orders on space weather that demanded a focus on space weather EMPs, with the structural side of the story being nearly identical. A couple new amazing planet discoveries. First, a stormy mega-Jupiter with silicates and iron in the atmosphere. They have done some of the best orbital imaging on this object ever, and some of its sister planets. The other planet found is a hot Saturn. This is one of the best detections yet from TESS, the new super planet hunter. Both links worth checking out. Same group that yesterday gave us that interplanetary magnetic field connection paper is back at it with cool prominence features in the photosphere and corona. Dang, who are these people? If you prefer the less condensed side of things, we also have a paper on the hottest plasma in quiescent active regions. But now we move to our top 3 stories, and this is not good for dark matter. First, there is now utter confirmation that the galaxy without dark matter is real. They're saying that galaxies are not supposed to be able to form without it, and their mystery-solving problems just got harder, but did so while also taking its version of an IRS audit, except the cosmic rays are the IRS here. Either a new cosmology is needed, or a massive modification to the existing ones. And last but not least, an absolute genius just debunked dark matter mathematically. He does not cite Birkeland, Alfvén, or Peratt, and the words plasma, magnet, magnetism, magnetic, electric, electricity, etc. are not found in the entire paper. The idea is that the global effect of everything we see does have effects at grand scale, and the missing mass problems of galaxies, for example, would be all the matter all around the galaxy in every direction. Plasma universe. Folks, we greatly appreciate your support. Just a few hours and we'll have Randall Carlson on the Catastrophe series. Don't miss that one coming up around lunchtime on the East Coast. We've got your wind maps and shots of our star to close, and we'll do this all again tomorrow, right here, but right now it's 4:30 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
Alrighty, got one here from The Prepared Mind titled, When Racism Hits the Fan.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. This week I have gotten to do a real variety of different topics on shit-hitting the fan. Today I want to talk about a topic that's been out there, it's been brewing, we've all heard about it. It is the Jussie Smollett fiasco. So I'm going to get into some subject matter that could be offensive to people who feel that political correctness is important, that being hypersensitive to the use of particular words, racial discussions. Just go ahead and turn off the video now. It's not worth watching and upsetting yourself. But if you want to hear what I have to say about this, with regard to a perspective from shit-hitting the fan, stay tuned. Welcome back. I like doing these videos. This is going to be completely improvised. I've got a couple little words written down here, a couple notes, but I've come and talked to you guys just as myself, just kind of venting, kind of letting stuff out, sharing ideas, and I feel that's helped us all successfully kind of communicate. I don't live a scripted life. Every day, at my work, I work with, over 100 people. And we come in all different shapes and sizes, colors, men, women. I've got, it's a mix mash of everything, and we all get along. And what's funny is, there's a lot of teasing, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of jokes, a lot of funny stuff. And sure, there's problems from time to time, but it doesn't stem from race, right? But we notice, right? Hey, you guys are from islands. You are from Mexico. You're from, China. You're from this area. You're from that area. And I try and learn languages with them. I have lots of fun. We make jokes, and it's amazing how we can get along. Different races. And we can notice that we come in different shades and colors, different hair. I just happen to be the white variety with blonde hair, blue eyes, and looks like I'm just big. But this country right now is being ripped in pieces by the divide and conquer partisan games. They're not games. It is. If I were to punch somebody and somebody could say it's a hate crime because they looked differently than me. Well, as far as I'm concerned, according to their own rules, Jussie Smollett has committed a hate crime. He's falsely accused the whole white race because it turns out they weren't really white people that did it to him. He can't point to and say, Fred and Tom over there, those white guys are the ones that did this to me. He just said they're white guys wearing MAGA hats. They threw bleach on me. They put a noose around my neck, right? And so what he did was he identified the entire white race, or the white-skinned people, the conservative white-skinned male people, as bad. He made all of us bad by not having people he could point to and say they did it. That's the guy there. It's completely fucking asinine. What he's trying to do is divide the entire country. Now, people were asking the question just this morning, what was his motive? I'll tell you what his fucking motive was. It's fomenting hatred and division. And unfortunately, there is a massive sector, not just of blacks, not just of Mexicans, not just of people of color. Even saying people of color seems ridiculous to me, right? Am I a people of non-color? Am I a people of peach color? But to use that difference to distinguish another group for the purpose of hating them, to me, I don't get. Right? And it's shocking to me. It's shocking to me what this Jesse Smollett guy did was he exploited the division that already exists, and he wants to promote that division, to put an even harder line between groups of people who could otherwise get along if they would give it a shot, right? There are white people that don't like black people, I get it. There are people of color that don't like white people, I get it. And then there's people that don't give a shit. They're just like me. Let me meet you on the street. Fuck. I'll have a drink with you. I don't give a shit. Say hi, shake your hand, high fucking five. I don't care. Right? You're just another human being to me. But not to Jesse Smollett. What did he do? He promoted white guilt. That's what he promoted. For white people to feel guilty for being white because he is black. And now you have to hate yourself because white people attacked him. And if you're black and you believe that he was attacked for racial reasons, it's going to make you wonder, are all white people like that? Are a lot of white people like that? Are there white people like that I need to worry about? I mean, it doesn't do anything good. He intentionally made a scenario by which he could exploit it for personal gain and sympathy, as well as to further promote his socio-political agenda, which is to divide this country and make people hate each other. So, I don't know what to say. Jesse Smollett and people like him, don't ever do it again. Or, hey, Jesse and people like you, keep this shit up and see what it fucking gets you. Right? You won't be attacked and killed for being a racist. But you're going to put yourself in a position where there's going to be so many people afraid of you, Jesse Smollett, and like you, because your attitude is such that you want to approach every white person with extreme prejudice and hatred. When, for the most part, people who have jobs, they don't have time for that shit. Right? They don't have time for hatred, time for playing the fucking victim. Right? You got time to cooperate and work, enjoy your work, enjoy the people around you, love them like another human. And then when shit hits the fan, we're going to hope for the best. We're going to pray for the best. The people that believe, right, that everyone is full of hate, people like Jesse Smollett, they're going to cause the deaths of other people. So be prepared for it. That's the point of all this. There's people that are going to approach you for reasons you don't even understand or fathom. They're going to approach you with hatred. They're going to believe that you don't like gays, or you are a pro-Trump, or that you're a racist white person, or you're a racist Mexican, or you're a racist Indian, or you're a racist Japanese or Chinese or Indonesian, or it just doesn't matter. Like I said, when I see somebody, a lot of times you can tell by the way they dress, the way they behave, act, look, you can tell they're from another culture. What if I don't look at that as, I hate that guy? I don't look at that as, get him out of here. I look at him as, I'd like to learn a little about their culture. It's interesting. You go, are you from this country? They say no. You go, where are you from? They say, India. I'm Sikh. Not Sikh. Sikh. It's their religion. They're Sikh. They're really neat people. Well, tell me about it. And they'll tell you about themselves, and then you can explain your culture. You do the same fucking thing with Europeans. Right? You meet them from another country, you can learn about them. They can learn about you. What a great opportunity. Right? Shit hits the fan, those opportunities are now practically destroyed because of these fucking people. So be on your guard. You're going to have to. Don't let your guard down. And whatever you do, don't let your belief in your goodness affect your ability to defend yourself. That is critical. There are going to be people out there that will take advantage of you. and use white guilt, straight guilt, political guilt, every type of guilt known to man to get you to lay down your defenses, to lower your defenses so that they can take advantage of you. That's how the game is played. That's how you actually get victimized, is when you allow somebody to do it to you. Anyways, you guys be cool. Semper Fi. What a crazy week. Crazy week. Lots of interesting things happening, economically, politically, etc. But I wanted to get this Jesse Smollett thing off my fucking chest. I've had it with this sorts of nonsense, this idiotic mental barbarism, this tribal stupidity that they try invoking amongst themselves on the left so that they can hate us. It's going to be a dangerous world as things fall apart. Right? Are we getting closer or further? Definitely getting closer to shit hitting the fan. And this fucking clown didn't help. Semper Fi to everybody. I send my love out to everybody who has love in their heart. I don't care, man, woman, child. I don't care what race, religion, creed. If you've got love in your heart, you're a good human being, and I'd be glad to meet you. For everyone else, you can fuck off, right? You're dangerous. You're dangerous if you believe like people like this, right? When shit hits the fan, we'll see how it works, right? Are you ready to deal with that? Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed. To watch the whole video, come to the Prepared Mind at Patreon. We talk about everything from opinions to perspectives to going over different products, everything to help you get prepared for when the shit hits the fan.
Alrighty, let's see, the next video. I've heard countless amounts of times in my life about how people shouldn't defend themselves because the Bible says that you shouldn't fight. Well, that's not exactly true. In fact, quite the opposite is true. The Ten Commandments, in the Ten Commandments, the original commandment is thou shalt not murder. Not thou shalt not kill. There's a big difference in the two. Although traditionally we've been drilled into our heads, that most of us anyway, that it's thou shalt not kill. That is incorrect. Go back to the original scripture. It is thou shalt not murder. So Pastor Dow has tackled this topic. I watched this video earlier. I thought he'd done a really good job with it. And so we're going to play his video. It's titled, What Kind of Pastor Are You Carrying Guns? So I answer.
All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. This is Pastor Dow. I was going through some of the comments here on YouTube, and you can read them for yourself. I don't know what it is about this country right here that people value their opinion above facts and above truth. Listen, we may all be entitled to our own opinion, but we definitely are not entitled. We are not entitled to our own facts. And I keep getting these responses from Christians. What kind of pastor are you that you continue to keep talking about guns and you carry guns? Are you afraid of something? I'll tell you the main reason why I carry guns. The main reason why I carry guns is, I promise you this, not because I'm afraid, it's because you are afraid. And when a criminal, or if you're in a convenience store one day, or one of them quick stops, and you have your wife or your children is inside there, maybe using the restroom or buying some chips or something, and you're at the gas pump and you're pumping, and I'm in there myself, and I'm probably getting a water or something like that, and all of a sudden you hear gunshot fire. 99% of you people out there in America that are men, instead of going in there, running in there, try to save your family, you'll probably be towering down behind your car, waiting for the smoke and everything else to clear. Which, if somebody like me was in there, especially a lot of veterans, trained veterans, because myself personally, I'm not going to leave my life in the hands of some police officer that's nowhere trained to anywhere near the level that I am, and dial 911 while everybody else is dying and wait for them to come with their nice fancy silver pens to write up a report, or some Barney Fife come blaring down the avenue, putting the public safety in danger because they're trying to get to this situation knowing good and well the smoke is done clear. No, I guarantee you what's going to happen is that if I was in that store, or a well-trained armed citizens, American citizen, and this guy starts spraying fire, and then we put one in his head and one in his chest cavity, and we eliminate the threat, I guarantee you I'll become a hero that day, and all the rest of the other people who used to be against guns because of the conditioning process of the mainstream news media, all of a sudden we don't want more advocates. That's usually some of the scenarios that takes place, because you see, if I was there and I eliminated the threat, and I actually was there to make sure that your family wasn't harmed and myself personally wasn't harmed, and they got in this situation right there, no, they will probably tout me as a hero. The news would die down, and then back to business as usual. I had a talk down in Gallatin, Tennessee, because somebody saw me get out of the truck. They saw my jump wings, air assault wings, and 82nd Airborne tab on the back of my truck, and so he wanted to have a discussion with me, and I said sure. So I had a discussion with him, probably for about 15 minutes in the parking lot, and he asked me what was my stance on guns, and I said, "Do you believe the Bible?" He says, "Yeah, I believe the Bible." I said, "You do?" I said, "Do you carry a firearm?" No. I said, "You don't believe the Bible then?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Do you have a Bible on your cell phone?" Yeah, I do. I sure do. I said, "Why don't you turn to Luke 22, verse 36. I said, "Do you believe the words of Jesus?" He said, oh yeah. I believe the words of Jesus." I said, "Turn to Luke 22, verse 36. All right, let me pull it up over here. Rather than me quoting it right, I'm going to pull it up over here, and we're going to read it verbatim from the King James Version of the Bible, okay? And one of the things that stopped him was he said I looked familiar, and he said, "What?" He asked me what my name was. I said, "Pastor Dowell." He said, "Oh, you the one on YouTube?" I said, yeah, I'm the one on YouTube. I asked him, I said, "Do you have it?" Oh, yeah, I got it. I said, "Can you read that, please?" Yeah, and this is how he read it, because he had it on his phone. "Then said he unto them," that's Jesus, "But he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip. And he that hath no sword, look at this, let him sell his garment and buy one." He sat there and thought for a second. He kind of did like this. He goes, "Man, I've never seen that before." And I said, "You'll be surprised talking with me some of the things you have never saw, or you have never had introduced to your ears, which if I continue to keep talking with you here, you're going to find yourself kicked out of your church, because they don't want people like you to start doing the thing that I just got finished having you to do, because they don't bank on you ever reading your Bible and comprehending and understanding." I said, "Can you please explain to me what they just got finished saying?" He says, "Yeah, it says basically, if you don't have a sword on you, then you take your jacket, your coat, offer you and you go sell it and then you go buy a sword? And I said, yeah. I said, all right, so today what would be considered a modern day sword? He said, I suppose the gun. I said, yeah, and that's something amazing how the comprehension levels work, isn't it? He says, man, I've never even thought about that a second. I said, yeah, because, you know, we can't carry around 4-foot swords or machetes and stuff. You know, people would think we're maniacs in this society, wouldn't they? He said, yeah, you got a point there. He says, what's disturbing to me is it's been right here in this book all along, and I've never read that. I said, listen to me. If you're part of a lot of these Christian churches out there, and let me go ahead and say this, my disclaimer and my statement of faith. My name is Pastor Dowell, and I believe in Jesus Christ, and He is my Savior. I believe in Him more so than 99.9% of the pastors, the theologians, the preachers, and the teachers in Christianity. Because I believe in keeping the commandments. I believe in actually doing what it says. So then comes the next day, what are you? I'm an Israelite. All right, so let's go on with the video, okay? All right, that's my disclaimer, okay? A righteous disclaimer. And so he proceeds to ask me, you know, same thing, what are, and he says, well, how does, you know, what do you think about all these gun laws and everything and stuff? And I said, well, I mean, the Constitution is pretty clear in this country right here. You know, we shouldn't have nothing about our rights to be infringed whatsoever at all. And he says, well, I mean, I just want to play devil's advocate. I said, that's an interesting word. I said, but I understand where you're coming from. It's an interesting phrase. Go ahead and go with it. He says, you know, the FCC and them, they ban certain things that we can't say over the airways. And there are certain things that right now, you know, us standing in this parking lot that I just simply can't yell out because we having rights, it also carries responsibility. I said, yeah, it does. And I said, but you know what's amazing about all this gun lobbying mess that we continually keep coming up systemically in our government and stuff? The FCC or us standing in this parking lot, they don't never gag us if you chose to use the airways to have a CB or to get on an international shortwave radio or to be on AM FM. Before you sit down, they don't ever gag you. They tell you what the laws are, but they don't ever put a bound and gag order on you, do they? If you was to right now shop, I mean, what is gagging you? What laws are gagging you? Of course, then he kind of drops his head again. He's like, man, I never even thought of this stuff. You see, because what happened is this guy has been conditioned by mainstream news media, which does not represent the sentiments, the thoughts, or the will of the people. Mainstream news media represents the deep state and corporations. And that's who they represent. We don't have a press of the people, for the people, and by the people. We don't have that. The only press that we have like that, which constantly is being censored on private forums, and that's how they get around it. Private forums, constantly being censored, are people who actually know their rights. Criminals, and this is an assumed behavior right here, criminals and vigilantes. You know, I often call a bunch of rogue, lawless police officers vigilantes as well because they don't obey laws. Them the only ones that don't obey laws. Now, there are good police officers out there. We have quite a few of them in the ministry, contrary to popular belief. We got police officers all over the Straightway Truth Ministries. And I'm sure there's probably a couple of undercover FBI agents as well. Matter of fact, I know that there is. And usually, we have a couple of brothers that's usually discerning. They can pretty much tell a spook when they see one, but that's okay. Let's go on. So we did have this. We had this nice, intelligent conversation that we had going on here. And he says, you know, here in Tennessee, we don't require people to register their guns. I say, you believe that, huh? You believe that? He says, yeah, but just go along with me for a second. I said, okay, go ahead, let's have a dialogue. He said, there are a lot of states that require people to register their firearms. You know what I mean? And I said, really? I said, now I'm going to tell you right now, from the people that I talk to, from all the way to Maine to California, I'm talking about people I personally know and I talk to. I'm not talking about the Gallup poll and all these other polls that they have going on. I'm telling you what the court of public opinion believes in states and say, all right? Americans, especially in the South, they are not about to comply with some mass registration of guns that has been previously owned by the people just in order to comply with a new law from some bureaucrat who's protected by guns and don't even have one in his own house. But see, that's the thing I always said. I say, it's amazing. All these senators and these presidents and everything else, and they don't mind being protected by guns, but they don't want you to have any, but they don't mind being protected by them now. Anyway, I said, you know what? I said, to me, registering a firearm is all automatically saying that I have an admission of guilt. And also, with all the other Americans that I speak to them, it is an insult to their intelligence, because it's an automatic admission of guilt, and nobody gives a damn what the law says, because now you're becoming very unconstitutional and unlawful. Because if I have a firearm, and I have plenty of them, and we're not allegedly registered, so you expect for me to automatically have an admission of guilt by submitting to this registration, just like sex offenders and pedophiles, right? He goes, oh, man. And I said, don't even let me get into the history of gun registration and Gestapo Germany. In other words, the more we talk, the more this conversation went on, the more his thoughts got shot down, because all of his thoughts originated from mainstream news media and listening to those communist pundits up there, and really truly not studying on his own and coming to his own conclusions, not even reading and looking for the facts. And because I told him, I said, man, don't you know that the mainstream news media, they tell you one thing, but the court of public opinion say another, man. 85% of Americans, you remember all these school shootings is going on. He said, yeah. I said, don't you know, man, that 85% of America supports teachers being armed in their school systems? He said, I didn't know that. I said, I guess by the time you get finished listening to the mainstream news media, I guess since they are opening up their mouth, that they're not lying, right? Because I myself personally believe that if mainstream news media mouth is moving, they are lying. That's what I personally believe. I just believe it, and I see it over and over again. And so then he said, let me ask you something about the assault weapons. The assault weapons. I'm like, man, here we go again. I said, I tell you what, man, I have to get in here and get this building material. Let's just let this be the last question right here. If you want to know more about the truth that I represent and stuff, just go to my YouTube channel, okay? He says, sure. He says, why do we need assault weapons in this country? We don't really need them. I said, sir, do you even know what an assault weapon is? Yeah, it's a gun that has a high capacity magazine. I said, really? I said, do you know anything about guns at all besides? Because it sounds to me that you're not even regurgitating your own thoughts. It sounds like to me that you're actually repeating what somebody else has said, and you have actually embraced what they said simply because that was your feeling. Am I about correct? I said, you even know what an AR-15 is? Oh yeah, that's an assault weapon. And I said, all right. I said, let me explain to you the fundamental difference between a military style grade assault weapon and an AR-15 that the majority of Americans commonly own here in America. The AR-15 that we own here in America civilians. They are usually semi-automatic. That means when you squeeze the trigger, pow, round goes down range. It has to be lifted up and reset and squeezed again before another bullet can go out. In a military-style assault weapon, which now they have burst, a 3-round burst. It used to be in the day when I first went in, it was fully automatic. As long as you hold that trigger down, you could empty the whole magazine. Be it 30 rounds, 20 rounds, or 10 rounds. You could do that with an M16A1, M16A2, an AR-15 and burst. You can do that with a Saw Squad automatic weapon. You can do it with an M60 machine gun. How many Americans you know have weapons like that? Well, I don't know any. I said, boy, isn't that amazing? And I said, did you know that the deer rifle that these pundits up there constantly keep talking about over and over and over again? I said, did you know that your most common deer rifle, like maybe like a Remington 270 or a 30-06? I said, did you know that those are a hell of a lot more powerful and a hell of a lot more lethal than an AR-15? Man, I didn't know that. How many people you know in America that actually has suppressors at the end of their weapons? Many of you call them silencers. How many people you know like that have that? No, I said, but the military does. I said, cops have automatic weapons. The SWAT team does it in every single state. So there's a double standard when it actually comes to the type of weaponry and the grade of weaponry that we all allegedly so-called possess. You know, I'm not the type of person that is, I've never, ever been what you call a fearful man. And I'm not about to practice it either. Now, don't get me wrong. I have the same common fears as anybody else does, but I've learned in those safety reactions how to push a lot of those things back because of training. Because there are such things, there are a bunch of things that are just naturally common to man, which if you're trained properly, you know, those fears, they dissipate, they end up going away, if you understand what I mean. But I'm not the type of person, first of all, I don't trust our government. Government, by its very definition, is evil, because power corrupts, and power corrupts absolutely. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. But you just think about this for a second. If you just take Washington, D.C. in itself, there's anywhere from 2,000 to 2,200 armed, either Secret Service agents, sheriffs, police officers, Capitol Police, all within a little radius up there in Washington. You think those senators and presidents and their families feel pretty safe? Then what's wrong with us feeling pretty safe in our own person? I'm going to throw you a bonus in there too, all right? The bonus is that there's an agenda in this country to keep people in population centers. That means cities. Because that's where the most death and destruction takes place. I'm not saying that rural areas are without its own problems, because they do have their own set of problems. Nowhere near like when you bunch up a bunch of people like a bunch of sardines, and you stack them up on top of each other like a bunch of sardines, like the Tower of Babel. Man, you start that problem when you have all these different diversities of backgrounds, different diversities of opinions. People have been reared different, raised different. But the way I see it, and the way I see it, and the way I see it and have experienced it, is I think one of the greatest things that Americans can do is to actually buy and own their own land. Get away from this renting. Get away from this mortgage junk. And then out there on your own land, set up your own range and stay trained. Stay trained up. Do dry fire. Practice shooting. Because you don't get to pick the day, the time, or the hour when evil comes your way. And I personally think, even in your home, you have got to get used to. You must get used to being able to have access to a firearm Because just because you're somewhere, I mean, think about it for a second. The majority of the houses, and I'm digressing here for a second, okay? The majority of the homes that are built in this country, they are built with stick frame, meaning 2x4 OSB. They have maybe some R19 insulation on the inside, sheetrock, and then aluminum siding on the outside. A bullet can clearly go from one end of the house to the other end of that house, enter and exit, period, point blank. A small arms fire. See this? I ain't gonna go through that. No, 9mm 45. The 308 is gonna have trouble getting through this. The bottom line, the AR-15 is not gonna go through this. Now, as a matter of fact, I need to go out back and do some tests with a 30-06 and a 270 because I think it'll mess it up pretty good. But what I'm getting to is this, is that they have conditioned us to the point to trust in everything that they say, everything that they put forth. Whatever they say, we're supposed to swallow it hook, line, and sinker and never throw it up. We never use self-autonomy in this country for nothing. We never think on our own merit or our own ability. We go to public school. There's a system already in place, and what do? They teach you how to think the way they want you to think, and they don't allow you to independently, and they give you the books and the curriculum to think by. You get somebody with a dissenting perspective or point of view, and all of a sudden, I told people the most dangerous thing in the world is if you all believe in the Bible like I am, read it. You're going to find out that this construct of what you see sitting out in front of you, it is totally different than what that book says. I mean, I got one right here. Got one right here. I think the greatest mistake I ever made in the world, which was my best mistake, was to actually read it for myself. When I started reading it for myself, I go, wait a minute. What are these folks doing? This book says the Sabbath is the seventh day. Why is everybody going to church on Sunday the first day? So I went and asked these preachers. They gave me this BS story about how it all changed. I said, okay, I hear you, but where's it been repealed? I did some study on this thing. Show me where it's been. Couldn't answer it. Could not answer it. And so I started. That started me down the rabbit hole. My red pill awakening. I said, let me look and see if I can find this birth of Jesus thing like they say it is out here. Let's see if I can find Christmas. I go, hey, preacher, I can't find Christmas in here. Well, looked at they went over the nativity scene with me and everything. I said, I read the story. It don't say nothing about no three wise men. It don't say that they came to him when he was a baby in a manger either. I mean, I use a little bit of self-autonomy. At this time, the preachers are basically, they would rather for me to go ahead and get out of the church, which I did. I left it. I couldn't find a rabbit laying eggs. Couldn't find none of this stuff that they were telling me. But I know one thing. The one thing I did do was find the truth and start walking in it. And I'm saying this. After you get out of high school, the system is banking on you. Let me go ahead and digress some more. While I'm here, let me just go ahead and throw many bonuses out here, because I say all this on my Patreon account. I do. I say all this and a hell of a lot more on my Patreon account. You know that the system is banking on you to go from high school to college. They know that the majority of Americans don't have enough money to send people to college. And they know that they have already conditioned you that if you don't have a college degree, you ain't going to be worth nothing, you ain't going to amount to nothing, you're always going to be in a service sector job using your hands and all this other blah, blah, blah. What's wrong with that? But anyway, so they know you're going to have to go in debt. And there's no debt forgiveness for college. All right? So you go in debt, and then you have to work if you're going to be what they call a model citizen. You have to work to your mid-30s before you can even pay off that college debt. And they already know that many of you just simply ain't going to pay it off because it's just too much. Because when they give you free money, you don't ever think at that time that you have to pay it back. You're just enjoying all this free money, man. They just giving you free money hand over fist. And there is no debt forgiveness for medical bills, no debt forgiveness for student loans. I wonder if they're going to break the Constitution, and since people are not paying it, I wonder if they're going to start throwing people in a debtor's prison. Because after all, something's got to be done with this debt. And like I said, our country, they don't have the intestinal fortitude nor the stomach to stop fudging the numbers and cooking the books. Well, anyway, I just thought I'd let you in on this to give you a little bit of education here this morning. I hope that I said something to stimulate thought. I only hope that. You want to learn more? Just go over there and check out my Patreon account. I include some links down below. Seems like everywhere I go nowadays. Hey, can somebody tell me what I represented or said wrong in this video? And if I did say something wrong, don't give me your opinion, please. Give me a source. Give me a reliable source. Can you do that? Can you do that? All right. I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope I ain't got to deal with this mess no more.
Alrighty. Let me see here. Had a video from, hang on a second here. I guess I deleted it. Dang it. Let me pull it out of trash real quick. 1 second. Pulse Change had a video. I'm interested in what it's got to say. It's titled, EU Loses It. Brexit Article 13 Now Complete Control of Your Car. Your car. Let's see what they're talking about.
Jason, in my opinion, the European Union has absolutely lost it. And this next story makes me pop my eyes out in disbelief with how just incredulous they are becoming. I know, Jason, you hate these new Facebook filters, but I can't stop them. And I'm definitely not in love with the latest decisions that are coming out of the European Union. We're not only going to be talking about Brexit, Article 13, but of course a new terrifying regulations, which again I am totally not in love with at all, and makes me want to regurgitate in all aspects of ways with just the reality of the nanny state that the European is trying to put in with this latest article that is talking about speed limiting gadgets that will be fitted to all new cars from 2020 to make speeding impossible. This, of course, is new technology that they're going to be instituting. This is on par to be a part of the law in the European Union that's going to make it so there's going to be a camera inside of your car that's going to be reading road signs and automatically adjusting the top speed by regulating the power to your engine. This is absolutely insane and just another level of the draconian nanny state that wants to have control of your life in the disguise that it's done for your safety, when in reality, this regulation most likely will hinder safety in some instances, especially if you take into the consideration that what if there's an emergency? Jason, there's a whole industry right now of people taking Ubers and private cars to the hospitals just because of how much the cost of ambulance rides are here in the United States. What if there's an emergency? What if you're on the road and you need to speed to get out of a dangerous situation? Well, now you won't be able to with this new regulation that's making its way to be actual law in the European Union. And as we know with the government, they use one excuse with the speeding, but it's going to be used for a lot of other different reasons. And of course, you could definitely expect the police to pull up by you, go into this new self-speed regulating gadget, and pull you over and stop your car automatically, leading to, of course, a very, very dangerous situation where in Europe, just a couple decades ago, they were rounding people up and attacking people based off just their ethnicity alone. So definitely a big warning out there, and this is terrifying. I mean, imagine what this is going to do to the car industry, what this is going to do to people and their sovereignty to even not have control of their cars anymore because big government's coming in and saying, well, you know what? We're going to tell you how fast you can and cannot go. And obviously, speed traps, speed cameras, and speed limits pretty much are just larger racketeering efforts by the state to generate revenue and rob you by road pirates who literally are there not for your safety, but to make money for the state. This is just going to bring it to an entirely new, insane, technocratic level. What do you think? Would you be happy, Jason? Is this? I know you're for a little bit of government. Is this something you'd be for?
How dare you, Luke? Number one, the EU is an unelected body that really should have no bearing over any sovereign nation. And doesn't Europe seem like such a fun place to live now that they're going to fit every car from 2022 on with a self-regulating speedometer that will not allow you to speed? That along with Article 13 banning memes.
Well, before we get into 13, people are saying, I mean, there's representatives in the European Union saying that this is a landmark day for road safety. This is absolutely insane. I mean, imagine driving your car and you're stuck doing the 10-mile-an-hour or 15-mile-an-hour limit because the government is there watching. Already, there's been many problems laid out with technological advancements and with the government tracking and surveilling you, but this will be done on such a level where they're going of every aspect of your life, and to me, this is terrifying. Article 13, even more terrifying, but to me, it's kind of a battle between billionaires fighting against each other, leaving everyone else in the middle. That's kind of my take on it. But again, also, a lot of developments with Article 13, which do you want to talk about, Jason?
Yeah, for those that are unaware of what's going on with that one, so the European Union, again, an unelected body of bureaucrats that nobody seems to want, hence why they voted for Brexit in England, and we'll get to that debacle in a moment. That was essentially saying, you know what? We don't want to be lizard people like Luke Radowski.
Sorry.
Actually, we want to be our own sovereign nation. We don't want unelected bureaucrats telling us what to do, and the people voted for it. And despite them voting for it, they had a referendum and another vote and another vote and another vote. And let me tell you, today, they're just voting on the withdrawal agreement only. That's all we want to vote. We only want to vote on the withdrawal agreement only. Gee, I wonder how one-sided for the establishment this is. So you have that going on. Article 13 is scary for so many reasons, and the way they're promoting it in the media is even scarier. You look at this, and here's the headline, Luke. Europe just passed sweeping new copyright rules that big tech hates. Well, the truth is, everyone hates it. Because if I'm doing a video, and people in Europe want to watch me, and I happen to be wearing a Nike hoodie that I paid for, I bought, hell, I might even have it for 20 years, well, that Nike logo is copyrighted. And if they so please, they can take my video down, monetize it on their behalf, or just censor it entirely in Europe. That's just one small example, Luke.
It could be used in that way. It all depends on the corporations and how they want to enforce it. But as we know, private industry and corporations have a history of kind of abusing any kind of power, any kind of leeway that the government gives them. And I think they're definitely going to abuse this, but let's just kind of unfold this kind of bureaucratic mess that is this Article 11 and this Article 13, because just to highlight here what happened, in the European Union, if a country and their representatives are against this, it doesn't matter. If the European Union votes in favor of it, you have to implement it, like we saw with this vote, where every Swedish politician and their political party voted against Article 13. But because other countries voted in favor for it, they still have to implement it in some way. We also heard that some MPs accidentally voted the wrong way on these controversial two big sections of it that passed by just a few votes. We're seeing here that several MEPs, those are elected kind of officials, bureaucratic kind of thieves, criminals, politicians, same thing. That's what they mean. That they have accidentally voted the wrong way on a key amendment of a new European copyright directive, meaning most controversial aspects of the new law might have been removed had they not erred. That's exactly what The Guardian says here. And it says here, as passed, Article 11 strengthens the copyright protections for new publishers against the reuse of their stories by internet companies, meaning pretty much you're sharing a link or a short excerpt of a story. You could now be held accountable by a news organization that wants to go after you for that. And then Article 13, which greatly increases the responsibility internet companies have to prevent their platforms being used for copyright infringement. This, again, a lot of bureaucratic, huge mess that's going to create pretty much upload filters. And again, 13 now MEPs, government criminals, said that they were tricked into voting the wrong way on these controversial measures, which just passed by 5 votes. That means that they were able to rescind and actually vote what they wanted to without this mistake that a lot of MPs are having in the European Union. Gee, what a shock there. They would actually be able to overturn the law. The European Union is answering back and saying, nope, we don't care. You made an accident. You're sticking by it, and the law passes. Of course, this benefits the European Union. This benefits government. This benefits some key private industries, but it's a major blow against Google News, YouTube, and other large online platforms, and directly holds them responsible for users using them. And this is going to have a lot of serious implications with the way specifically countries want to implement this all over the European Union. And honestly, this is to me not a good thing, but again, essentially billionaires fighting against each other, having us in the middle unaware of what's happening here in a kind of limbo situation. That's kind of what I gathered from it here.
Well, if you look at the European Union, it is an unelected globalist wet dream, Luke. I mean, this is exactly what they want, and that's why the European Union was actually brought into fruition through talks at the Bilderberg Group. And Jan Davignon, who was I believe one of the heads of the council there for many, many years, revealed back in, it had to be 2007, 2008, that the first talks of the European Union were held at Bilderberg. And they are an unaccountable, unelected organization that is frothing at the mouth for more and more power. In fact, we've got this video of a lovely unelected EU bureaucrat telling it like it is. He's basically saying, listen, we don't need votes. We don't need the people making any decisions. We need more power. Find a way to give the European Union more power, or we're totally screwed. We need more power. Wait.
And that is the real problem, colleagues. Why there is such a problem in this crisis? Because member states are reluctant to transfer new sovereignty and powers to the European Union. And we all know that the only way out of this crisis is a new transfer of powers to the European Union and to the European institutions.
Oh, we need more. We need
more power.
More power.
We need power. No sovereignty. I don't know why I sound Asian, but he pretty much looks like he looks like this. He looks literally like this, and at least let's give him some credit. He's at least honest at what he wants, because that's been the kind of goal of this kind of Bilderberg started idea, which is the European Union, is to subvert sovereignty and freedom. The Rockefeller family has talked about that for a very long time, and these people are incredulous, and they're so incredulous right now that they think they can't even hide it, and they're going to regulate and they're going to control you to the fullest extent that they can, because that means controlling you and having every aspect of your life in their grasp. No, thank you. I don't want to be controlled by people like Macron. Emmanuel Macron even came out. If you've been seeing, sorry, I'm going to change this filter. I'm getting distracted here. I like the lizard one. Predominantly, people are probably going to see that and literally think I'm a lizard now. But again, Macron, right? Emmanuel Macron, one of the leaders, one of the bastions, one of the saviors of Europe, as the mainstream media portrayed him to be. He just came out and said that a 73-year-old woman that I talked about very heavily on my Twitter account during the last Yellow Vest protest, she was knocked unconscious. She had blood coming out of her head, a grandma there. And he says, well, hopefully that taught her a lesson. This is what Emmanuel Macron said to this 73-year-old elderly woman that was brutally attacked and injured in the streets of Paris. These people have no regard for your safety, your humanity. All they care about as this geekazoid, little bureaucratic Orwellian ninny, where's the little filter here, as this ninny just care about power and themselves. Again, apologies for the Facebook. I think they're Facebook filters. We start playing around with these. It's all right. Jason, anything else you want to say and want to end it off here?
Yeah, I just want to let people know that Luke is ridiculous for wearing these things, and that if you look at what's going on with Brexit, again, just in the past 24 hours, Parliament voted no on all Brexit options. What does this mean? This means yet another referendum, more debate. And remember, even if they were to pass what was originally sought after in Brexit, Luke, it would take years to get out of the European Union.
Yeah,
so what are we going to have?
Usurping the will of the people. The people voted. Yes, we want out of this crazy bureaucratic mess that keeps taking all of our money. And then the European Union's like, no, it just makes your eyes pop out on so many different levels. You can't handle it. Can't handle it.
Oh, folks, we are doing 1, 2, 3, 4 videos a day, 1 on the main, 3 on the backup. If you are not subscribed to We Are Change or Pulse Change, make sure to do so. Smash the thumbs up button. You gotta ring the bell. You gotta ring the bell. If you don't ring the bell, you won't know when the videos come. So please,
we're working our butts off here. It's killing us, literally.
All right, I'm done with him. Most importantly, folks, have a laugh with all the craziness in the world, and then try to be the change you want to see in the world.
The lizard people.
We'll see you next time.
Alrighty, got one here from NWA Prepper titled, Do You Even Communicate?
Hey everyone, what is your communication capabilities? Obviously cell phone, that's actually what I'm taking that video on. I have a little hand crank radio, which I like. This one's pretty inexpensive, nice, cute little handle. It's got a weather radio, an AM/FM radio. It's pretty light. It's way lighter than this cup. I mean, it's real light. But what is your communication equipment? What are your capabilities? And that goes for just more than just monitoring. You know, how can you communicate? These are real popular. I mean, frequency mode. I don't have the program to program it on the computer. I learned how to program it on my keypad. I have channels on there that will work to get a hold of my family. Such as GRMS, FRMS. I've got MERS channels in there. I've got a couple channels that are specific to my mag group. I've got the local fire department dispatch and stuff like that programmed in there. And then, of course, you have your citizen band radios, which I have not put in this vehicle yet. There's a handheld one in my bag in the back, which is actually, I don't know why I didn't get it, because that's where this one was too. You need to be able to communicate. That whole knowledge is power thing is pretty important. And if you don't know anything, if you haven't heard anything, you don't know what's going on, that makes it hard to deal with or manage situations. So you need to have some ways to gain information. I would love to have a shortwave radio, like a little portable, I'm sorry about 2 hands, a portable one that I could monitor shortwave. That's kind of my, I don't know, my, oh my goodness, I can't wait till I find it. Just so I can monitor some worldwide events or have the capabilities. Most people don't have any backups to their communication plan. I have several of those family band or GRMS radios that you get from, Academy Sports or the outdoor stores, camping stores type radios. And I've got several different calibers. I've got some that they have a real low wattage, low power, which are just around the yard or the house. Then I have some that have a little bit better power, all the way up to some other kinds of handhelds that are all commercial, everyone radios. And then I have a couple of these Bofangs, or however you want to say it. That's how I say it. I have not yet taken my 2-meter test or my ham operator's licensure test. I do not use this on channels that require that currently, because I do not have that. I listen. I particularly listen when it's a storm season or when there's a storm blowing through. And then my work has a base station there that we can listen to. And some of the guys are ham operators, they can communicate. CBs are good short range, just around the farm or the next little community perhaps. You can go as big or crazy as those as you want. And I know the light's bright today, so I can't help it that much. None of my communications equipment, short of my cell phone, was expensive. That wind-up radio, my Dynamo radio, was...
1 second. We're going to join up at Grafton here.
With the flooding that's happening, it's steady creeping up on downtown Grafton. So I would say in the next couple of days, this downtown area where I'm traveling at will be closed to through traffic. Up down the street, it says that this is State Highway 100 going towards Illinois Route 13. That traffic is actually blocked off, so you can't get past. So the floodwaters are steady creeping up. So if you're traveling to Grafton and you have some business here, I would say do it sooner rather than later, because the floodwaters are coming and it's already creeping up downtown. Peace.
Alrighty, let me cancel this. So, let me back that back up if it will let me. Here we go.
Live in Grafton, Illinois. Some parts of Grafton are flooded. I'm actually downtown Grafton, Illinois, and you can actually get through, but this rain coupled with the flooding that's happening is steady creeping up on downtown Grafton. So I would say in the next couple of days, this downtown area where I'm traveling at will be closed to through traffic. Up down the street, it says that this is State Highway 100 going towards Illinois Route 13. That traffic is actually blocked off, so you can't get past. So the floodwaters are steady creeping up. So if you're traveling to Grafton and you have some business here, I would say do it sooner rather than later, because the floodwaters are coming and it's already creeping up downtown. Peace.
Alrighty, and I wanted you to think about what I said during the monologue about how this is not good. We have today and tomorrow and I believe Saturday. Here, let me pull this up. Let me get Facebook out of there so I can put that back in its place. Get back in your place. Okay, so we've got today, tomorrow, and Saturday that we've got rain coming in. As you can see, we've got storms coming in right now, probably within the next 25 minutes or so. That's going to be affecting us here in Highland. So let me go ahead and click on the regional radar here, which will bring me to the other radar maps, to the Midwest view. So you can see we have a substantial amount of rain to our northwest, so directly north and to our northwest. All of that rain that is dumping onto the Mississippi River is going to continue that flooding, okay? So, and again, this is just started. We've got the next 2 days that's going to be rain, okay? So, you know, this is not a good situation. If you know anything about our area, our levees aren't too hip either. So, while I don't think that this impact from today's rain and the next 2 days' rain on top of the flooding that is starting now in Grafton, I don't think that's necessarily going to be enough to be the straw that broke the camel's back. You know, what will happen is the ground is going to be saturated. It's already saturated, okay? But there's not going to be a period to where it can dry out any in between now and when the big rains start hitting, when I consider actual spring. So, like next month, you're really going to see April, you're really going to see the rain start coming in. April showers bring May flowers, right? You're going to start seeing the rain really come in next month. Well, with the ground already saturated, we are looking at a serious flood situation here. So, and that's this year. I'm telling you, next year is going to have people's mouths hanging open. Okay? It's absolutely nuts what's going on. So I just kind of wanted to, I seen them go live over on Real STL News. That was Real STL News, by the way. My hat's off to them. They're citizen journalists. They are on the ball. They are on the scene for almost every single important thing in St. Louis. They are first on the scene, and they cover it honestly. So my hat's off to them. I seen them go live, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to put them up on the screen and show folks what's going on in our neck of the woods. So anyway, let's continue back. Sorry for the interruption. We'll continue back with NWA Prepper.
Like $7. I actually think it was on sale for $5 at Tractor Supply, and I've had it for a long time. And then my Bofang radio, I got it off the internet. I want to say it was $35. Came with the charger, came with a standard battery adapter where you can use AA batteries. Came with this antenna and another antenna, which sucks even more than this one does. This one is not the best at all. And then I have since purchased additional antenna and some parts and pieces to make another one. I've just been pretty lazy and haven't done it. My CB handheld I got at a yard sale for like $5, $10. I don't even think I spent 10 on it. You can get a brand new handheld for $30. And I started out with a small low wattage mobile unit, or the ones you mount in a car, and the antenna wasn't great and it didn't get very far at all. And so when I changed vehicles, I haven't installed it because I either want to get one that's a little bit better or get off my lazy butt and take my ham license test and put in a ham mobile unit. One or the other. But you've got to have ways to communicate. The GRMS or family band radios, those are two separate bands, but most of them nowadays do both. You're supposed to pay a $10 licensure fee to use the GRMS. And then Those radios you can get relatively inexpensive, but they're more than this. Of course, this is not drop resistant or water resistant very well, and you can get some of those that you can drop in a puddle and pick up and shake off and talk. So, but some of those, I mean, you can get some of them for, and they usually come in pairs for $25, and then you can spend upwards. I've got some that were about $80 for a pair of them, and they're better wattage and waterproof. So, or not waterproof, but water resistant. Think of alternative ways to communicate with your family. My family, in their go bags and in their day-to-day bags, and or my wife's is in her car, they have a radio that is capable of communicating in our whole sphere, our whole little circle of influence. Whether my kids are at home, whether they're at work, whether they're at grandma's, whether they're anywhere in their normal circle, those radios are powerful enough and have good enough antennas to communicate. That's super important. Super important. So step up your communication game. Get what you need. Start small. There's lots of places you can get your amateur radio license or help with it and take the test. It's relatively inexpensive, and you can get in there for a radio for less than $50. Yazoo's, there's some Yazoo radios that are really expensive, but there's some that are around $100 that are better radios. And there's a ton of information on these. A ton. Get out there, step up your communication game, or at least plan on it. Say, okay, well, we need to be watching out for these little family band radios when they go on sale, or maybe we can trade somebody out of a couple of them. Or just keep your eyes open. They'll be at yard sales, or they're around. You can get them. But you need information, and you need to be able to communicate. It's important today. Of course, it's going to be just as important during an emergency. Thanks for watching. Remember, let's get ready.
Alrighty, Full Spectrum Survival here with a video titled Riots in the Streets and Ukraine Protesting Clashes in Russia.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Full Spectrum Survival News. Today is March 28th of the year 2019. Violent retribution is being reported in Russia after more than 10,000 people protested the signing of a land deal. This was between Russia and Chechnya, one that civilians say was robbing them of their homeland for the sake of political corruption, an ongoing theme that we're seeing. Organizations were said to be capturing footage of the protesters there, and there have been reports of some civilians going missing after the events, making this bout of unrest worth watching if it spreads across the entire nation. In other news, unrest is being reported in Ukraine as experts say Ukrainian voters are being bombarded with disinformation and propaganda as the country nears its national election this weekend, with tens of thousands taking to the streets to oppose the current president Petro Poroshenko's rule over the people. An investigation by Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau said that the level of corruption in the defense sector, the influence of those involved, and rooting out the schemes poses a serious challenge. This is with many taking the sides of the people, warning that corruption is a disease, one that is growing each and every single day. We are fed up, shouts one protester that is marching against this kind of overt control. The time is now to take it down. Officials in the U.S. state of Ohio are being warned about riots after an email to a county jail leader this week warned that the atmosphere within the prison setting itself was growing increasingly dangerous. This is both for the officers and the inmates. The email, which is dated this week, was prepared by a union director representing corrections officers in the jail, in which a corrections officer warned that the constant red zoning of inmates has caused the atmosphere in the jail setting to become more violent. As things worsen in the prison setting now, Just imagine a time when economic uncertainty and social moral behavior makes these conditions that much worse for all those involved. These riots will be spilled out into the streets if nothing is done. That warning is from a previous corrections claim that inmates are sharing their corrections details and their conditions with members of the outside world who have vowed to take retribution against the authority and against the populace for making the conditions possible. This is no longer just a prison concern, they warn. In health news, it was recently reported that the number of Ebola cases in the Democratic Republic of Congo had surpassed 1,000. This makes it the second worst outbreak of Ebola hemorrhagic fever in history, after the 2014 outbreak infected 29,000 people and killed more than 11,000. New research shows how this pandemic potential disease attaches itself to a host in remarkable ways that disease researchers warn leave Ebola on the table for being a global infectious disease if extreme measures are not taken now to halt its mutation to a more person-to-person contagion. Scientists know that to enter the human cell, Ebola takes advantage of a natural process through which cells clean up themselves in their surroundings by internalizing the dead cell debris that surrounds them. Once inside, the Ebola virus membrane fuses to the endosome that has formed around it, and then it releases its genetic content or code into the cell. Disease researchers are watching for mutation. They say that it is inevitable. They warn that mutation takes place on a scale every time a new person becomes infected with a disease. However, most of these mutations do not make significant changes to the viral code capable of altering the course of the disease itself through contagion. It is possible, warns one disease researcher, for Ebola to make the necessary jumps to become easily transmitted between human beings without the sharing of fluids or close contact. This would be a truly disastrous mutation for the entire world, they warn. We were recently asked by a viewer and a Patreon member for our best suggestion for pandemic preparedness. This is as we witness multiple pandemic possible diseases rising across the world. The number one prep is information. Understanding the morbidity and mortality rating of a disease is important, of which in the case of Ebola is over 60% in most records. And prepare avoidance behavior to avoid being in contact with the virus itself. If it is truly a situation of life or death in the case of a widespread contagion, be prepared to cease going to work or stop going to school long before the public is told to self-quarantine. Spend a few of your days on vacation. Watch the progression of the disease and make the changes. In other news, vitamin C has a place in the Awake and Aware's natural medicine cabinet for a seemingly ever-growing list of reasons. From the shortening or the altogether cessation of sleep apnea among those that are affected, to free radical control and anti-cancer properties. This important vitamin, which we note is extremely high in safe-to-consume pine tree needles, is a boon for preparedness through natural medicine. Now researchers with the University of Helsinki have shown that through its epigenetic effects, vitamin C may influence hundreds of other genes in the human body. In fact, in controlled trials, vitamin C has lowered blood pressure, it has decreased the incidence of atrial fibrillation, decreased bronchial cord inflammation, glucose levels in patients with type 2 diabetes, and it has shortened the duration of colds. All of these items and their studies are freely available for you to do your own research on trusted sites like the National Institute of Health, or if you look at university bodies, sites that you can actually trust and rest assured that the proper clinical results were posted instead of common hearsay. Now researchers are showing that vitamin C can shorten hospital stays. This is why it's important to us, because this essential and home use treatment option, its metabolism changes in many conditions that involve physiological stress, such as infections of the human body, surgery, intense traumas, and burns, in which case vitamin C levels can decline dramatically in the human being. This study and others like it, they remind us just how important this vitamin is for personal preparedness and for disaster preparedness, times in which the human body will be subject to intense stress out of the norm, that stands outside of the normal day-to-day stress that we experience now. Reminding us to not only purchase vitamin C for our own natural medicine cabinet and to prepare ways to find it during a collapse like pine trees, but to also begin a safe regimen of vitamin C intake now before a disaster strikes, so that our bodies will be better prepared to handle the added stress that comes on with a crisis event when one does take place. A researcher at the University of Texas at San Antonio is documenting the treatment and mortality rating of military service members who lost their lives or were severely injured while serving the Western world as a whole during America's longest war, the war known as the Global War on Terrorism. The study's findings are extremely important to the awake and aware, as they represent dangers that exist to an individual and to a group during a long-duration emergency, a time when access to medical care and emergency management action through local authorities are either slowed in their availability or they're halted altogether. With research on past social disasters seeing an increase in personal harm through violence during these times. The researchers who were working on the study found that introducing just 3 pivotal tools that can be employed by the awake and aware community during a long-duration emergency cut down on the mortality of wounded servicemen by up to 40%. It's really amazing during extensive tours overseas. The tools: an increase in the use of tourniquets, an increase in the use of transfusion therapy, and more rapid hospital transport times, in which the injured were rapidly moved away from their position of injury to a location where more advanced medical treatment options existed than those that were available on the battlefield. We recommend that every person here in the community have a tourniquet in their personal kit, and they have plans in place to seek medical care from skilled professionals during times of extreme duress, and mobility plans to get there. As always, we'll be posting links to each one of these stories to patreon.com/Full Spectrum Survival. A special thank you to each one of our Patreon members for making the news possible. This week's Full Spectrum News is also brought to us in part by MRENation.com, a leader in meals that are ready to eat. MRE has a coupon code for Full Spectrum Survival Watchers. It's FSS DEAL. You'll receive 25 feet of fire lighting 550 paracord with every purchase of $50 or more, or use the code FSS10 just to get 10% off of your entire order. As always, from Kelly and I to you and yours, please stay safe and keep watch.
Alrighty, let's see. I'm looking here. Okay. Nope, hang on. Let me do this one from Dabu7, titled U.S. Air Force, we need $5 billion to fix weather-damaged bases.
The damage done thus far by the rains and the storms within the past 6 months has wreaked havoc on the United States, and right now the U.S. military is saying that it needs $5 billion to fix all the damages, and they need $1.2 billion of that by June if they are going to repair Tyndall Air Force Base and Offutt Air Force Base. In a lot of these areas that took on hurricane damage in Florida, as well as the areas inundated with floodwater right now throughout Nebraska and other regions. Now, as you can see in this image here, a lot of these areas still underwater. Many of their sites affected big time. Now, militarily, strategically, it makes me wonder if or how deeply anyone ever looked into these situations before they ever even built a base in some of these areas. Raises questions. And at this point, the money is just stacking up through the roof. $5 billion to fix the damage done. This is just part of the issue. What happens with the food shortage, and then the economy and everything else down the road that many people are not even seeing right now? We also have to look at this floodwater situation has wreaked havoc thus far, but I mean, spring is just getting underway. A lot of that snow hasn't even melted off in the mountains. When that happens, throughout the next few weeks, into the next month or so, we could see extreme flooding. Matter of fact, the NOAA put out a warning on just that. So you put all these things together, it's not looking good right now in terms of what this country is going through from weather events and the cost of recovering from them. And we don't even know where that's going to be in terms of the loss of food and grain and everything else because of this flooding thus far. We're just going to have to wait and see over time as those numbers come in how high this bill stacks up. But This is what they're saying thus far in terms of this. Wanted to make mention of it. I'll leave a link below. It's been Dabu7.
Already got another one from Dabu7 titled Food Shortage ? U.S. grain bins collapse after catastrophic Iowa floods.
In recent videos, I have been talking about the damage done from these weather-related events here within the past 6 months or so, and even going back further than that. But here recently, these things are starting to stack up, and just in the instance of the military bases, they are saying that they need $5 billion to recover from these weather-related incidents within the past 6 months. And that's just in Florida and Nebraska. You're looking here at this Iowa flooding that has just absolutely wiped out some of these farms. They're just absolutely swamped with water, and a lot of these bins that were holding grain have just bursted. There's nothing but destruction in many of these areas. And these guys are just saying they can't even imagine what the tally is going to be in terms of loss in the end of this. You're talking after millions of dead calves in Nebraska. Now thousands of tons of grain lost in Iowa. They're saying that these floodwaters have hit Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, South Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska, resulting in an estimated $3 billion in damage thus far. So another $3 billion we could throw one just right out the gate in terms of all this. Now there's a video here of these guys going down, and prayers going out to them and everyone else out there dealing with this. These big bins of grain absolutely destroyed. You can see here they're going through here on a boat. You can see this is absolutely flooded. All of this. All of this. Just wasted. Water seeping into all these other bins, wasting everything. And I'm telling you guys, if this continues for weeks to come with more flooding, with weather-related events and the springtime flooding, snow melt-off, we could see big-time issues in terms of food shortage come the end of the year. A little bit after that, it depends on what areas are hit the hardest. As you can see, and as you have seen, this has destroyed a lot of farmland in this country. And as these waters still sit there, feet of flooding, they can't plant fresh crops. It's springtime. Guys are saying we should have stuff in the ground right now. Instead, they're still waiting for feet of water to recede. That's what's happening. So, you want to talk about the loss of food? Yeah, it's happening. Problem is most people are not going to understand this till it's too late. This is why we always say have a plan. We always say have a plan for a disaster type of an event, something similar to this or a lights out event, where you really need to have a plan for you and your family to survive in terms of food, water, the whole nine. But food shortage means everything skyrockets, and that makes everything else around it go up as well. I don't think it doesn't matter how much of a warning, how much you talk about this out here. Some of you will heed the sign, but others just won't. In one ear, out the other, off to the next YouTube video, and they won't never chalk up any plan. And that's sad. The writing's on the wall, folks. I'm going to leave a link. Make sure to join us every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for Underground World News Live on Dabu77. Much love, y'all.
Alrighty, got one here from Survival Prepping for Normal People titled Serious Medical Issues Before SHTF.
Hey guys, welcome back to Survival Prepping for Normal People. I did that video, the biggest mistake a prepper can make. Got a lot of people thinking, and that's a good thing. That's the entire purpose of my channel, to get you guys thinking about prepping and survival in ways that you might not have considered before, or things you might have considered, but not necessarily thought it was that big of a deal, or I can just help you look at something from a different angle, and that's a good thing. And a lot of you guys were leaving comments and stuff about that particular video, and one that really stuck out to me was a person says, well, too much self-assessment could lead people to the point where they don't see a reason to prep. Okay. Yeah, that could be true in certain situations, and the example this person gave is that if somebody was like a type 1 diabetic, right, and they were insulin dependent, then unless they had a backup refrigerator and backup power sources for both of those, and a year or 2 years worth of insulin, however long it's good for, however long it lasts on the shelf, I don't know. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to deal with that in my immediate family, so I don't really know that much about it. But I know that without the insulin, a person's body can't metabolize sugars and all the other things it's supposed to do, and it begins to shut down, and the person ends up dying of organ failure. It's not a pleasant thought at all, but there are those among us, and surviving is all about understanding reality and being able to deal with it. The reality is there's probably hundreds of millions of people on the planet who are alive right now because medical technology and advancements in medicine allow them to be. Where 100 years ago, those people wouldn't exist. Because a lot of them, depending on the onset of their different various conditions, a lot of them wouldn't have survived through childhood to reach adulthood, to have more serious complications from whatever their conditions are. I'm not saying that we need to necessarily go to a system where it's survival of the fittest. If there's something wrong with you, then we just leave you hanging in the wind until you dry up and blow away. Not at all. The point of advancement in medical technology is to keep people alive who would be dependent upon the system and medical facilities and medication that would have not ordinarily had a chance to survive. So there are those out there, and a lot of you guys may know people like this. If it's a serious disruption, I mean, we're talking Carrington event type thing, an EMP, I don't know, computer virus that brings a power grid down and everything locks up, and it's a year, 2 years, 10 years before the lights come back on. That's when they talk about, a lot of the experts discuss, that book 1 Second After, William Forstchen. Yeah, I think that's the guy that wrote that, retired Army colonel, I believe. And then you have the Congressional Committee on EMP and things like that put together a report and delivered it to Congress in 2008. And that's where William Forstchen, he had worked for a think tank in the Pentagon, and his job was to consider different forms of asymmetrical warfare and how an enemy could do a sneak attack on the United States and what would have the most damage for the least amount of input. And an EMP obviously would do the trick along those lines. So he ended up writing the book because he wanted to raise public awareness. And the main character in the book has a daughter who's diabetic, and he meets this lady who gets stranded on the highway, and she's a nurse. Okay, and they become friends. His wife had passed away. The character in the book, his wife had passed away, and he becomes friends with this lady who's a nurse that he rescues. She's kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere, and when all the cars freeze up on the freeway, everybody's just walking, people walking down the interstate. And because she had medical skills, they allowed her to stay in the town, and she was trying to help him nurse his daughter and stuff, and he did all kind of things to get insulin for her. He had traded with other communities, basically got to the point where he was going to steal it, do whatever he had to do to keep his daughter alive, and who wouldn't? And then you go through the heart-wrenching backstory of her health declining, and eventually she ends up passing away from complications from being an insulin-dependent diabetic. And there are lots of examples in that book, and it was a very good book. If you haven't read it, I suggest you do. It was a very good book. It kind of gets down to the nuts and bolts of survival. I mean, there's some stuff in there that, it has to be exciting, right? The story has to be exciting. I think survival will be mostly boring, okay? It's mostly going to be a lot of hard work, right? So if you're a physically disabled person, unless you have a very strong support system around you, a family that cares about you, that would be willing to take care of you while you do other things, there there are those among us who are physically disabled to the point where there are not a lot of things they could do to contribute. So you would be completely dependent upon other people's love and care for you to sustain you and keep you going. But in that report in 2008, and in the book that he wrote, based on a lot of the findings in that report, which he helped put together, by the way, as a liaison for Congress from the Pentagon and all the things he was working on, they expect an 80 to 90% die-off of the general population within the first year in a complete grid-down situation. And that's not hyperbole. That's not just, we're trying to scare the hell out of everybody so that we could sell systems to harden the grid. I mean, there is part of that. I believe there's a guy that was former director of Homeland Security or National Security, something. Anyway, I can't remember his name right now. You guys know who I'm talking about, though. Anybody that studies this very much, his name is slipping my mind. He works for a company that supposedly sells hardware and software to help harden the grid against an EMP or a solar flare. So there may be a little bit of conflict of interest there, but this guy does go around and give lots of talks about how bad it can be. But when you have the military that does a study, and sometimes I think they may push the envelope a little bit on what is truthful and what is not, especially if they're trying to get a lot more funding. I mean, they are a branch of the government and they fight for funding just like everybody else. But for the most part, if they do a study and they talk about the consequences and what can happen, I'm sure it's fairly accurate, because they really aren't as political as the other political branches of the government, obviously. But like I said, they still fight for money in the budget and whatnot, but they have to be as realistic as possible as well, because it doesn't do them any good to make plans and have contingencies where they just trick themselves and to make the threat seem worse or not as bad or whatever. That's terrible if your military does that. So I would trust our military probably about 95% on the reporting they do when they do these big studies. I'm sure they're going to fudge numbers a little bit here and there, like I said, if it's going to help their funding or whatever. Anyway, so if you are a person who is physically disabled, or you are medically dependent on something to keep you alive, to keep you functioning, and you are prepping, or you have people in your family like that, obviously you're going to do everything you can to prepare in some way. The best advice I could give is to prepare as best as you can. Like if you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, I don't think you can just go out and buy extra insulin. I mean, I'm not sure how that works. But if it's like anything else and you have to get a prescription from the doctor, a lot of times you just can't go buy more, especially if it's your insurance and stuff that's paying for it. If you're paying for that stuff out of pocket, I'm sure it's very expensive. Almost all, prescription medication is very expensive if you pay for it yourself. So it's not like a person's going to have a refrigerator in the garage just full of extra insulin lying around. I understand that. But those types of medications and things that you need, okay, obviously you've thought about it. If you haven't, then you need to, especially if you have somebody in your family, aunt, uncle, wife, son, daughter, something like that, cousin, people you're close to. Talk to them about what they've done. What are their plans if there's an emergency and they can't get help for a few weeks or maybe a few months? Is there anything that can be done? Like I said, it's not like you can just go down to the pharmacy and say, hey, I'd like an extra prescription of this, an extra prescription of that. It doesn't work that way, right? The game is you go to the doctor writes you a prescription, he writes you a certain amount, okay, and medicines do expire over time. Injectables expire, oral medications such as pills and tablets and things like that, they expire. So you buy it and it's not good forever. I mean, you got to keep it in optimal conditions to preserve its shelf life. Some things do last for years, but even those things have an expiration date eventually. The compounds inside start to break down, and the efficacy, the ability of the medicine to do its job just isn't there anymore. So there's a lot to consider. And the cold, hard truth of it is that in a shit hit the fan situation, or the end of the world as we know it, whatever you want to call it, it will be survival of the fittest. Nature is harsh. Nature is the harshest judge of all. The fact that humans have clawed their way to the top of the food chain, even if you didn't believe in God, even if you completely believed in randomness and evolution, it is such a miracle that humans are in the position that they are, either whether they were created to be so or they evolved to be so. But It didn't get that way without lots and lots and lots and lots of tragedy and loss along the way. Because in nature, some things work and some things don't. And those different recipes, whether they be genetic or behavioral or whatever, if they don't work, then nature has a way of weeding them out. And it sounds cruel and it sounds cold, and it is. It is cruel. It is cold. It's not people's fault that they have debilitating diseases. It's not people's fault that they are dependent upon medication or machinery or whatever, modern medical advances to stay alive. It's not. That's why we have it. If people didn't care about people like that, we wouldn't have all these advances. People would say, oh, well, just let them die off. You know, it's nature's way. No. All these advances in science and stuff have taken place precisely because we care about people and we want to keep them with us here in this existence. But if that whole support system is gone, if society and technology and medical services are gone, what are you going to do? So once you've made all the preparations you can make, you're also going to need to make preparations to do the best you can to make people comfortable if they are not going to survive. There is no reason for family members to suffer needlessly. And that's the whole thing behind my motivation for survival and preparedness, right? Everybody says, well, we're all going to die someday. Yeah. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go right now, right? The point of prepping isn't to live forever. The point of prepping and survival is that you can minimize the amount of suffering before you get there, right? Why suffer a long, drawn-out, horrible, slow, painful death when you don't need to, right? So that's the point of learning survival skills and preparing. So for those of you who are dependent on the machine, literally on the machine, for your very existence, whether it be, you know, due to medical conditions or medications you're taking or services you have to get, make plans to make yourself or your family members who have these serious medical issues as comfortable as you can for as long as you can. Do your best to limit people's suffering. That's the entire point of survivalism and learning those skills and being prepared. It's just to minimize the suffering. Yes, we're all going to go at some point, without a doubt. Nobody makes it out of here alive, right? Didn't Jim Morrison say that? I wrote a book to that effect or something. Anyhow, nobody makes it out alive, but there's no point in abject suffering along the way when it could have been avoided, especially if it could have been avoided by taking a few simple steps to prepare and learn some skills. And so that's what I'm here to do, to motivate you guys. And those of you who do have issues that could be terminal in a shit-hit-the-fan situation, you don't have to give up on survival and prepping, because I guarantee you got people in your family that you want to see go on without you, and you don't want to see them suffer. So there are a lot of things you can still do to help them get ready for what they're going to need in troubled times ahead. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully it's helped you guys think about things. And reality is stark. Denying reality doesn't make it go away. Accepting it and making a plan and doing the best you can, working around whatever issues and problems it may be that you have, that's the only thing you can do. That's it. So I want to thank you for being on the team, and I want to ask you, what have you done today to get ready?
Alrighty. Part of the reasons I like his channel so much is he's so honest about it, and it's topics, especially like that one, that are well, just like he said, nature being brutal. You know, that topic alone is a brutal one. That's why I'm in the same boat as him as far as do what you can now, you know, to minimize the just as he said, the suffering. So, you know, we're all going to die. I would just I would rather die of natural causes or whatever. I definitely wouldn't want to die of exposure to the elements or starvation, you know. I'd rather die from a battle than I would from not being prepared, or not being at least prepared enough to be able to sustain myself. So, anyway, next up is Florida McKee with a video titled Power Grid Fails, pandemic or dollar collapse equals prison population goes free.
It has been a while since the Florida Maquis has done a video regarding the subject of the prison crisis. I've been doing some research, and I would like to cover this topic one more time, but I'm going to use this map plus two others that I've never shown anyone before to illustrate this point. My audience, I have said for a long time, is the brightest, most intelligent, well-informed audience on YouTube, bar none. Logic is going to be something that will be a path you have to go down in this event for what I'm saying to make sense. Many have taken issue with the fact that I have made the Midwest out to be more dangerous than what they might think it is, and the coasts to be less dangerous. There is an argument for that, and there's an argument against it. The reason that I have made the center part of the country more dangerous has a lot more to do with the lack of security forces, the vast amount of area to be covered by the remaining security forces, and the worst prisons, the ones where they house the most dangerous, the most violent, are out there. Many have said, well, 90% of prisoners aren't violent and they're there for nonviolent crimes. Absolutely right. I totally agree with that. I've never taken an issue with that. But when you have millions and millions of people behind bars, even a small percentage, say like 10%, ends up being hundreds of thousands of people. And in a situation, and this is for those who have said there's some magical giant plan to gas and kill all of these people, think about it critically. Let's say you're the guy that got charged with that idea. And there's lines at the grocery stores, you know, going around the block. At the Walmarts are running out of everything. And the dollar's collapsing. And you have a choice. Get up in the morning, drive the 40 minutes to the prison where there's more than likely a riot going on, and try to get in there and out of there safely. Meanwhile, the rest of your neighbors are getting what's left of the edible food at the grocery store? Or what's left of the fresh or clean water? No. The vast majority of the employees of the Departments of Corrections, of whether it's federal level, whether it's state level, local level, they're going to do what you and I would do. They're going to make the logical choice. They're going to attempt to do what they can do to take care of their families, take care of themselves. The prison for them has been something that was a cash cow. They have, over the last few years, increased the rates of pay, increased the benefits, because they just can't get people. And they still can't get people. Now, the other maps that I was talking about, this is a national map of the federal facilities around the country. And you can see where a lot of them are located in the Midwest. There's a lot of them in California, that's true. The difference with California is, my guess, just spitballing, is between the amount of people that are located in California on the coasts versus the people that aren't, and their level of being self-sufficient and being armed, I think they're going to be less at risk as a whole than, say, the people of South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa. Even though there's no facilities in Iowa, imagine that as, you know, let's say you were a prisoner, a criminal that had just gotten freed and gotten out because they just couldn't afford to run the prison anymore. Or maybe you just overwhelmed everybody, and you wanted to get someplace where you were guaranteed, more than likely, never to have to deal with the authorities ever again. Iowa is a state that has no federal facilities in it whatsoever, sparsely populated, full of food. It's Midwestern. It grows food everywhere. And there's neighborhoods, suburbia, sprawling forever. All you need to do is find the one person who is maybe run off to the store, lining up to get the food or the water, do a quick break-in and find the weapons that they left behind, because, of course, they're not going to be taking them to Walmart with them, and the vast majority of these people have 3 and 5 and 7 and 9 weapons, and you're in business, especially if you've gotten together with 3 or 4 or 5 guys. This is going to be the thing that initially, logically, you don't think about. Now, let's say that you were a person that's already prepped, that's already gotten your stuff, and you're ready to go, and there's a situation like that, and you have some neighbors, maybe a mile away, friends down the road, and you want to help them out. And let's say you want to bring them something. At some point, you're going to more than likely not be at your home. And you're not going to be able to recognize these guys from anyone else, and you're not going to be looking for it. Because with, perhaps the web being down, perhaps, you're not getting news updated on a daily basis if the power grid's gone down. Maybe they've tried to announce and tried to put out warnings that there's been a mass prison break across the country, and they just haven't been able to get the word out. And they're, places like Walmart, places like that, they're running on generators. This map is the more frightening one. This is a map of all of the state and local facilities across the country. Green is local, blue is state, and you can kind of barely see it, but there's a few little pink ones in there, and those are the federal facilities. This is why I have said for the longest time that the Midwest is the most dangerous place. For example, sometimes it just boils right down to money, and I know there's people out there that think, the guys in blue, the police, that they're going to be an enemy, and to some extent that might be the case, but those guys are going to have their hands full, because a lot of them are going to be showing up for work and doing their job. So I don't think even if they had it in their mind to do that, they'd be, in a position to affect that type of thing. A place like Indiana has a state budget of $2 billion. The state budget of Florida is $80. And I know, it's like, well, wait a minute, you're saying money's not worth everything. It's about the infrastructure that's already in place. The security infrastructure with all of, and plus it has to do with also ex-military guys. If I was going to be in a situation where the power was down and there was no access to the internet, I would like to have a neighborhood full of guys that had put on the uniform. And you will find no place other than maybe Texas or California that has a greater population of former and perhaps current military folk. Because we have been through the training and we understand what dealing with that situation is like. Because for the most part of your young military life, you're dealing with life without, and I'll just leave it there. But that's why I've tried to warn about this, because I've seen a lot of folks talk about what to do, how to prep, how to create a garden, how to, deal with the weapons and the fresh water and generating power. There's no shortage of videos on YouTube that can give you everything you need to know about how to prep. But nobody talks about what the unseen threats during that time will be. And if you're still of the opinion that you can stay awake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, sitting on top of an unsupported fire base that's doubling as a grocery store in the basement, you're kidding yourselves. That might work for a week, but it won't work for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And it really depends on how long the situation goes. The only examples that we've had in the past have been regionalized, localized situations. Like, for example, a lot of people use the hurricanes. Those affect only a couple of states, maybe 3, 4, possibly 5 at a time. And the rest of the country is perfectly fine and standing up and ready to assist in any way they can. We saw power crews coming down here as far as Pennsylvania and Indiana and Ohio into Florida to help stand everything back up. If we were to have a nationwide crisis where every state had to worry about its own, the states that were already equipped to deal with the situation over and over and over again, like Florida, for example, California, I've even put Maine up in green because I think those people out there would have a chance to get out to Canada. And I'm not saying an event like this might not affect Canada. I don't even know where their prison facilities are, but it's definitely a threat. It's definitely something that people need to think about. And I'll end off this video by just saying, a lot of people say, well, you don't offer any solutions. The solution is to, of course, prep, of course, be ready. You know, don't be the person that has to run to Walmart, ideally, but also be ready to move if you have to. That's the overriding advice I would give to anyone. Don't prep to the point that you have stuff that you can't take with in a pickup truck load or 2 pickup truck loads. In fact, it might be smart to leave a stash just for those criminal types to find so they go away and go down the road. And that's just base strategy. Find some cheap Cliff Bars and a case of cheapo water and, you know, maybe some Goodwill jackets, socks, clothes, whatever, you know. And they don't want to have it be any harder than it has to be if they're seriously just looking to take care of themselves. If they're the organized crime types that are looking to take over neighborhoods so that they can control massive amount of resources. If they're going to be the types that are going to be raiding pharmacies. And yeah, the pharmacies are going to be completely overrun. So the next stop is going to be the medicine cabinet of every house in the neighborhood you live in. And they're just going to go from one to the other, and they're not going to care. Since the grid is down and the police are got their hands full anyway, you know, they're not going to give a rat's ass. And that's just how they are. And like I said, not talking about the entire population of them, just saying the 250,000 that represent 10%, the worst ones. So anyway, I will leave it there, but if you can't read I'm sorry, I have the legend down here. It's just there's no way to make it bigger. Basically, the ones in red, more than 50% of the population is in danger. The ones in orange, less than 50% is in danger. And in green, less than 25% in danger, or in danger in the sense that they don't have the ability to mitigate. So anyway, I will leave it there. But thank you guys so much for the support. I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Alrighty, got a video here from Pulse Change titled Syria, a Complete Western Media Blackout of the Facts.
So right now we are hearing about major developments in the Middle East as we are hearing that Aleppo was just bombed. Now the details are still very scattered. The dust still hasn't settled, but the details are very disturbing, to say the least, not only geopolitically, but also socially, with very little mainstream media coverage or a larger conversation about a big development that's going to have a huge impact on American foreign policy. Now, of course, we're hearing unconfirmed reports that the United States was working in coalition with Israel to launch these attacks. Those have not yet been confirmed. Also, other things that have not been confirmed is that an Israeli fighter jet was shot down. Allegedly, these attacks were against the Iranians inside of Syria. As we remember, Russia has promised the Israelis that they would try to push out the Iranian influence out of Syria right on the doorstep of Israel. But those are, of course, the unconfirmed details that we are hearing. Jason, what are the confirmed official details that we are hearing about this very huge bombing that just happened?
Yeah, so right now, we're getting reports out of Herat that 7 have been killed. Washington Post, Luke, they're saying that 6 people have been killed. So it seems there's absolutely loss of life, number one. Number two, it is the Aleppo International Airport. Now, Israel, who has not taken responsibility for this, has said that this is a place where Iranians are moving weapons, missiles, arms. However, to me, there's no doubt that this is just the beginning now that President Trump has tried to recognize the Golan Heights region as belonging to Israel when no other leader in history has done so. Russia, Putin is about to go discuss this with the Lebanese president. The U.S. has been blasted yesterday in the United Nations, as there was an Emergency Security Council meeting probably just prior to these attacks where 14 other nations, Luke, let me repeat that, 14 other nations condemned this decision to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights and said it was a violation of international law. You know what you have in the U.S. media, my friend? Absolute crickets. It's as though the UN only matters, Luke, when they want to go to war.
Exactly, and specifically what they vote for is selectively picked and handpicked on what coverage you're allowed to see and not allowed to see from predominantly the very enthusiastic warmongers at the mainstream media that predominantly cover pro-war voices rather than peace voices. Now, one thing that's also important here is that I do believe that there's a lot more international scrutiny to this because, again, we're still hearing unconfirmed reports that the United States could have been involved in this. If this happens, this is major news. We know what happened last time when Donald Trump decided to bomb Syria on behest of his daughter, who kind of told him to. Those were the details that we heard from this entire situation that was absolutely insane and left a lot of Americans scratching their heads like, hey, why are we bombing the Syrian government when they're the ones fighting radical Islamist terrorists in that region? There's a lot of scrutiny, a lot of conversation. We're not seeing that at all. And I think this is done on purpose, mainly because pretty much ISIS is eviscerated in Syria. They're pretty much done. There was even an Onion article saying that the last U.S. troops are chasing around the single-handed ISIS member around war-torn Aleppo. So, people obviously making jokes about the situation, but from the other videos that I have seen that's not getting a lot of coverage, there's lines and lines of hundreds and hundreds of radical Islamist ISIS fighters surrendering, and pretty much the war's over, but it looks like the war has just been ramped up on another level, and it's only going to get worse from here, as it's not to fight radical Islamists. Obviously, that's what it never was in the very first place. That's what our reporting was telling you from the very beginning. Hey, this is not about liberating and freeing people. Let's not kid ourselves here. This is a lot more. We even talked about Jenin Oil. We even talked about the oil contracts that a lot of establishment elite people in the United States have to the Golan Heights region. Couple years ago, when this war was still brewing, we told you, hey, the bigger part here is also Golan Heights. It's also to balkanize the area. It's also to destroy Syria. It's to divide and conquer, and to face off geopolitically against China and Russia, because China and Russia are the main kind of supporters. They're the main backbones of Syria. And now, with Donald Trump recognizing the Golan Heights region as Israeli for absolutely no reason or benefit to the United States, Russia has sent their military police in that specific region. Syria has vowed to fight to the last soldier, and we are looking at another conflict that is happening here, and it's going to be happening, and we've been foreshadowing this for a while, between the Syrian state, the Syrian government, supported by China, supported by Russia, which is, just had a victory against radical Islamists in their country and rebels in their country, but they've been through a lot against, of course, Israel and the United States, with also the secret backing of Saudi Arabia. So that's a very, 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 very scary situation because these are global powers in a proxy war. And this war, obviously, from the events that just unfolded, is not going to end anytime soon, and it's only going to get worse from here. What else do you have to say about this? Because it was interesting to see this UN kind of resolution, Jason, because Israel has been bombing Syria dozens of times without any real justification except for going after the Iranian influence, which we know was there. Iran was one of the countries that helped them fight against ISIS and radical Islamist terrorists. Again, big talking points here that you won't hear anywhere else on the mainstream media. But it's very interesting that this UN resolution actually came out and did this when Israel has been doing this dozens of times. And if it is Israel just by itself, it still is an interesting case to why this happened.
Yeah, so it wasn't a resolution, it was a meeting where they declared all of this illegal. And I want to say this, because you did have Russia's deputy permanent representative to the United Nations, Vladimir Sarvanikov. He said this, Luke, on the sovereignty of the Golan Heights, okay? This is pretty important. It is unacceptable when the emerging positive dynamics is undermined by unilateral steps, noting the U.S. must abandon its aggressive revision of international law. Russia's position remains unchanged. The Golan Heights are the territory of the Syrian Arab Republic. This is a first world nation with a real military that came into Syria because they smelled the bullshit that this was not about ISIS. Since they have been there, this has been drawn out, and there is nothing left to draw out. ISIS is gone. As soon as ISIS was finally declared defeated, Luke, the 4th, 5th, 6th time, and there was nobody else to declare ISIS, all of a sudden Trump says, you know what? It's high time we recognize as a globe that the Golan Heights belongs to Israel. And you know what, my good buddies at Genie Energy, they deserve those contracts that they got years ago to drill in oil that apparently wasn't declared theirs by the United States at the time. But that's okay. I mean, this smells horribly. And again, our mainstream media, not interested because they love when we bomb Arab nations.
Yeah, they support Trump. They give him a boost. They praise him when he bombs the country and he starts more military conflicts and arms other despotic nations and does horrible things that the U.S. empire is known for, that he promised he would be different. I mean, Donald Trump previously said before, don't attack Syria, an attack that will bring nothing but trouble for the U.S. Focus on making our country strong and great again. And he's doing the exact opposite of what he promised, not only during his campaign run, but also predominantly what he just promised a couple weeks ago at CPAC. At CPAC a couple weeks ago, he's talking about General Raising Cane, bringing all the troops back. Even before that, made a major announcement. All the troops are coming back home from Syria, most likely even Afghanistan. Bring the troops home. Now, entangling us in a huge geopolitical mess that is not ending and puts us on the forefront of a direct headbutt, of a direct conflict with Russia, which the delusional mainstream media won't dare tell you about. He sold lethal weapons to Ukraine. He has, now there's Russian soldiers on the Golan Heights contesting Trump's announcement. There's soldiers inside of Venezuela, which we're going to do another story about on this channel, with Trump saying, get your Russian troops out of Venezuela. All options are on the table. We have to understand the severity of the situation that is not going away, and it's only going to be worse, especially with the American peoples with their heads in the sand, not knowing the bigger details of exactly what's happening here with their foreign policy, with their money, creating a situation that doesn't benefit anyone, hurts people, and definitely doesn't make America great again. That's my take on it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. We always look forward to hearing from you. And again, hey, this is important information. We get censored, we get hurt in the algorithms, we get deranked, we get demonetized for talking about this information. While the fake news, mainstream media that tells you about Russian collusion and this dream, they're the ones getting promoted. So again, you guys are more important than ever. Thank you again so much for watching independent media. Stay tuned for more here on youtube.com/we.
Alrighty, just got an interesting message on Facebook. It was, let's see, what date? On the 21st, 7 days ago, I was doing the live show, and I noticed when I looked over at Facebook that it was kind of grayed out, my Facebook feed. I normally keep it like mostly off the screen so I don't have the video on the screen. It slows my computer down. And so anyway, I noticed it grayed out, and I drug it over, and it told me that it detected copyrighted material. And that, what do they call it? I forget. Warner Music Group had, filed a claim. And I thought, well, maybe I played, and this was into the show a little bit, right? And so I thought, well, maybe I played a video that had music on it or something. Okay, And it all it did was it was banning the video from like 4 different countries. The United States wasn't one of them. So I'm like, whatever, And I just clicked accept, right? And then later on after the show, I went back to the notification because I just wanted to know what it was that I, played. So I went back to the notification, clicked on it, it took me to that screen, and I clicked play match. And I could have did that during the show, I guess. And I clicked play match, and it was me talking in the monologue. I'm like, wait a minute here. how is Warner Brothers Music, claiming me talking, right? So at that time, I disputed it. And that was 7 days ago. They just sent me a notification now that they accepted my dispute. Yeah, no kidding. And released their claim on my video. So, my God, that's unbelievable. But anyway, I thought that was kind of humorous. Okay, let's see. I figured we would check this out. The last couple of live shows of Prepper Nurse 1, he has talked about a channel, Prepper Rabbit, and so I subscribed to it, and I see a video up here that he made a video, so we're going to check him out. If you don't know of Prepper Rabbit or haven't heard of him, that's the name of his channel, Prepper Rabbit. Please go show him some love. Tell him the Watchman News sent you. And this video of his is titled, Walking the New Property.
Hey folks, another quick video from Prepper Rabbit. I want you to look here. You're not on camera. I'm out here with a buddy of mine. He's covering up his head. He thought he was in the shot. He's not. Anyway, walking the property. And we still got to get it surveyed. But I kind of wanted to get out here and see what's what. And talking to one of the neighbors, he was saying that there was possibly enough good wood in here to cut out maybe $15,000 or $20,000 worth of wood. I'm not talking about clear cutting it because I'm not interested in doing that. But if I could cut some of it, open it up for pasture and all that, I would. And also make a little money, make some of our money back. That would be probably a good idea. That way we'd have, play money to dig a well, cut in a longer driveway, things like that, of that nature. But I'm going to tell you something. Sorry about that. For something that takes somebody maybe an hour to do, it's taken me two and a half hours. I'm trying to get back to some sense of shape and lose a lot of this weight you see on me. And because before all this happened, I'm still a husky boy, but best I can figure, I've gained about 60 pounds, and I've got to get it off of me. If I don't, it'll kill me. But with the leg messed up and still having problems breathing, it's not an easy task. It's whipping my butt. But I just wanted to, here I'll pan around and let y'all see out here where I'm walking and looking at the property. I'll make sure I don't show my buddy, because if I do, he'll have a conniption. But yeah, trying to be productive, and I've rented a storage unit for my belongings up here, and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to give y'all an update. The owner doesn't care if I get up here and walk around. We haven't closed yet, but hopefully we'll be closing. I'd like to close about the same time I close on my house, But anyway, I just want to give all you fine people an update and let you know what I got going on. I will be showing some couple of cups I've got. Somebody sent me, a young lady out of Arizona. She did some stuff for Prepper Rabbit. And when I do a video at the house, I'll show them. And if anybody's interested, of course, I'll have to figure out what the cost of them are and all that. But she made them for me because she watches the channel, and I thought it was very nice of her. Sorry, I got a bug trying to get down in my ear. But anyway, folks, I just want to do this quick video and let you know what I was doing today. And it never fails. When you're trying to talk to somebody or do something, there's always something trying to crawl in your ear, your nose, your eye, or something. But I'm going to get off here before
I start flailing like I've got bees all over me. All right, folks, this is Prepper Rabbit. More videos coming soon, God willing, and the creek don't rise. That is my 2 cents, and I hope God blesses each and every one of you. And again, thank you to whoever prayed for me. I truly appreciate that. And I hope God blesses you as much as He's blessed me. All right, folks. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah.
Alrighty. Let's see. Got a new one from Survival Prepping for Normal People here titled Protecting the Grid, but Why Now?
Hey guys, welcome back to Survival Prepping for Normal People. Glad to have you back. Second video of the day. I'm going to keep you guys taken care of. I'm not going to let you down. Anyway, what I want to talk about right now was the president signing this executive order and allocating this money to basically do a very comprehensive study on what it would take, what would be needed, and how it would have to be implemented to harden the grid, either to protect it from an EMP or a Carrington-type solar flare, coronal mass ejection type of event. And being me, not always a skeptic, but I like to try to, I just can't help myself. I come at things from a weird, different perspective. Like I said, maybe it's head injuries. I don't know what it is. But when I was reading about it, and I'd seen some videos about it and read some articles online about it, and pretty much all the commentary was positive. Everybody was like, yeah, it's about time. And it is. I mean, we've known about this vulnerability all the way back to the 60s when the United States was conducting high-altitude nuclear bomb tests over the southern Pacific. I mean, in areas where there was no civilization for hundreds of miles. And I can't remember, was it Starfish Prime? I can't remember which one it was. It was the one where they thought they were going to get a 5 megaton yield, and because of the way they formulated and physically constructed the bomb, they actually got like a 15 megaton yield. It was 3 times larger explosion than the scientists expected it to be. Because back at this time, there were no computer simulations. Everything was calculated on blackboards or paper with slide rules. If you guys are old enough to remember what a slide rule was and how that works, I may have been one of the very last people in public school to ever be taught how to use one. Pretty interesting instrument, basically, pre-calculators. Then, of course, Texas Instruments came out with their calculator, and that really did change the world. But anyway, I had an old school math teacher, and he taught us how to use slide rules. So this thing actually knocked out lights in Hawaii when they did it. And, of course, they kept track of things like this, and so they kind of ran the numbers backwards and figured out exactly what had happened and why it had knocked out power as far away as Hawaii, which I think was like 1,800 miles from the test site, if I can remember. I read a lot of stuff, so you have to forgive me sometimes. There's so much crap crammed in there. It can be hard going through the files to pull out the exact file I'm looking for. But yeah, I think that was Starfish Prime. So a lot of you guys may know. Go ahead and update and refresh my memory in the comment section down below. So anyway, so they have known, the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex, America's armed forces, and the Russians have understood for a long time what an EMP is and exactly how it works. And both sides spent a lot of money in research perfecting the exact recipe for a bomb you would need to make it the perfect EMP, a power grid killer. The Russians, I think it was the Tsar Bomba, the 50 megaton bomb that they blew up just south of the Arctic Circle, the largest explosion ever initiated by humans and possibly ever could be. I mean, this thing was huge. God, 50 megatons, that's, what's that, 50 million tons of TNT equivalent, right? This thing could literally level a city the size of Chicago or Houston, which are geographically, population-wise, Chicago and Houston are very large, but geographically they are very spread out. If you've ever driven from one side of Chicago or one side of Houston to the other, there are cities with a larger population but are more densely packed. But this thing's big enough, it could have taken out either one of those cities, no problem, flattened the whole place for 20 miles in each direction, right? Terrible, terrible thing. But what happened with the EMP surge from that bomb is it ran down fence wire and telephone and telegraph wire, I mean, for hundreds and hundreds of miles, radiating out from where the blast was. And that wasn't exactly a high altitude burst. It was just such a large explosion that as it, grew and the explosion grew, it sent out a cascade of electrons and everything and caused an EMP. So both sides have understood that this is a serious threat, and both sides have worked for a long time to perfect the ability to use EMP weapons against their enemy. And it makes a lot of sense because command and control requires communications. Communications now require electronics. So if you can knock out your enemy's electronics, they have no communications, it cuts the head off the snake, so to speak, and your enemy's at a serious disadvantage because he no longer has any command and control. So both sides, whatever they may tell you, have perfected the technology. Well, they're not the only people who know about it. Pretty much anybody in the nuclear club, nations armed with nuclear weapons, are those aspiring to be, whether it's Pakistan, India, Israel with its 285 secret nuclear weapons, because they don't tell you one way or the other if they have them. They've got them, and some reports have it at almost 300. Britain, France, other places that have them, China, they all have EMP technology as well, because it would make sense to blind your enemy with an initial attack, cause as much confusion on the ground as possible, try to break the links in the chain of their chain of command, and then do your follow-on attacks, right, while your enemy's stumbling around blind. It'd be the equivalent of somebody throwing sand in your face in a street fight and then kicking you right in the nads. Not a good combination for you. So it would be a surprise attack. Well, now the president has signed this thing, and they want to harden the grid. So basically what's going to happen is this executive order and this money that are going to be outlaid aren't necessarily going to harden the grid. They're going to find out exactly what needs to be done and how much it's going to cost. And even this, I guess you could call it this engineering survey or whatever it is going to cost a ton, right? You got to get all these experts in the room, and you have to figure this out. And I thought to myself, why now? And why now? After all these years, that report came out in 2008, where a congressional study was actually done, commissioned by the Congress, and I think it was is it Vincent Pry, Peter Pry, something like that. Dr. Pry, anyway, he came back as part of this panel and did a lot of the presentation for Congress about what would happen in an EMP attack. And of course, like I mentioned in another video, William Fortune, I think retired Army colonel, wrote that book 1 second after. He was also part of this group, and that was part of his job at the Pentagon, I think, was to study asymmetrical warfare and try to think of things that other people didn't think of. It was his job and his think tank's job to think out of the box, So they were very well aware of the effects and what could happen, especially after 2008. They had no excuses. I mean, the entire Congress and the Senate and everybody in government knew the full dangers of an EMP attack. So why now? I got to thinking about that. Why now? Why would they be so focused on it now when it's been a threat for at least 50 or 60 years? And I think the reason it's so important, and you're going to see it's going to gain a lot of momentum, and it'll probably actually get done, is because once 5G is fully up and running and implemented, and if you live in a large city or urban area, you may have 5G service to some extent, but it's not fully implemented yet. When they say 5G, it's not just fifth generation. It's just not a faster version of your digital network that you have now. They're talking about the Internet of Things, where everything that has Internet or Wi-Fi capable will all be interconnected from your car to your appliances, to your television, to your phone, to your laptop, your tablet, whatever. Okay, so in most places that have 5G, because I have the option to use 5G Internet on my smart TV, but I don't ever click on that. I use the other one. It's not analog, right? Obviously it's digital, but it'd be the analog version, the old version. I've just never clicked on it to use it. I mean, what I've got works good enough, but it is an option there for my internet service. But anyway, once it's fully rolled out, and it's not everywhere yet. Large cities have it, large population areas have it, but it's not completely everywhere across the countryside, but it will be. And I've done a video about that, where I say it's worse than you might already think it is. A lot of people are concerned about the electronic frequencies and the magnetic field disturbances and everything that has an effect on the human body. yes, that will cause lots of health issues. A lot of people think that that's the only reason it's being implemented, but it's actually not. Now, it's an insidious, sneaky way to cause a lot of illnesses and mystery things that can happen to people, and for 50 years they'll go, oh, we don't know what caused it. Yeah, right, my ass. They're already well aware. There have been many briefings at the United Nations about the effects. Anyhow, it's all about a grid of control, okay? The Internet of Things, where everything knows where you are at all times. Did you guys see the article where I believe it was Facebook wants to do 3D mapping using pulse waves from their little home assistant thing so that they can map the inside of your home? And they've also been cleared by the federal government to do this. And what it will also do, it's going to kind of go hand in hand with Microsoft's technology, where you walk into a room and it turns on the lights and it sets the temperature to what you want and it starts playing music for you. Well, how do you think it knows you're there? Okay, so yeah, if you got one of these home assistant things, you might want to really rethink that. Not only are they listening to you, in the near future, they're probably going to be mapping your house on a continuous basis and not only know where everything is in your house, but where you are in your house at all times. Kind of creepy, right? I don't necessarily need everything to be that convenient. My refrigerator, yeah, if it wants to order milk and eggs and bread and all that shit because everything is interconnected and it knows, and life is so easy. Convenience is the road to slavery, but that's just my opinion. I mean, you can think what you want. You may want everything to be completely convenient and organized, and the less you have to think, the easier your life will be, right? Always be wary of anybody who tells you they'll do the thinking for you. Just a little bit of advice there. So anyway, they want to do this infrastructure upgrade to protect their new control grid. When 5G is fully implemented, I mean fully, okay, you have the Internet of Things, and you have all kinds of smart technology and robot assistants and all that kind of shit. Kind of like that movie not I Am Legend, it was the other one, I, Robot. Both of them had Will Smith in it. Pretty decent movies, both of them. Anyway, they had that central tower in the middle of Chicago, right, and it sent out this Wi-Fi signal to all the robots, and it did all the updates automatically and stuff. That's basically what 5G is going to be for. It's going to be able to carry so much information that we'll start seeing these kind of technologies in the not too distant future. Everybody thinks it's a long way away. I don't think so. I think we're going to go from Roomba to R2-D2 fairly quickly. And that's all going to come about, and can only come about when 5G is up and running and fully implemented. But to have a grid like that, it has to be stable. It has to be continuous, and it has to be hardened, because the more technology you rely on, the more vulnerable you are, right? One man's convenience is another man's weapon in this case. So I think the only reason they're really kind of ramping up and getting in gear about this thing right now, and you got to remember, everything happens for a reason, and it's usually not the reasons they tell you, right? Oh yeah, we want to make sure that the grid is hardened in case of an EMP attack. There may come a time. Now I know I'm going to get all Isaac Asimov and Orwell here on you, or maybe even some Ray Bradbury going on here. A little bit of Philip K. Dick, for those of you who like to read science fiction. But there may come a time in the future, and I could see it being in the not-too-distant future, where you might wish for an EMP attack to shut down the grid. Once you understand what it's going to be like when it's fully implemented, and they know everything you buy, everything you do, everywhere you go, everyone you associate with, and everything else. And, of course, you'll get the buttholes that say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then what do you have to hide? I like my privacy. I was born alone inside me. I want to stay alone inside here, and I'm going to die alone inside here. I don't need everybody knowing exactly what it is I do at all times, right? They don't need every single ounce of data they can collect on you. Information is money now. I mean, yeah, if you're a Facebook person or a Google, and they sell and trade your information like there's nothing to it. Of course, they don't give you your cut, but anything in large amounts has a value to it. But anyway, I don't know. I see it being used as a grid of control, and hardening this thing against EMP is just one more way to protect their investment. Like I said, there could come a day when we may wish that there would be an EMP attack. But by then, guess what? The system will be hardened, and there won't be any way out of it. Not short of an act of God. The That's a whole different Whacked Out Wednesday video right there. And this isn't a Whacked Out Wednesday video, by the way. You can look up all the things they want to do with 5G, why it's so important that they get it rolled out and implemented, which countries are going to be the ones to control this technology and manage all this information. That would be a very interesting thing for you to discover for yourself, where they want to headquarter all of this new tech, right, and process it and be the middleman for it. You might be surprised, or you might not be surprised. But anyway, I could see a day when an EMP might not necessarily be a bad thing. So anyhow, I want to thank you guys for being on the team, and I want to ask you, what have you done today to get ready?
Alrighty, let's see. What did I do to get ready today? Not die. That's a thing. Full Spectrum Survival with a video titled Dangerous Times Ahead as the Poor Take Out the Rich and Large Global Decline.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Full Spectrum Survival's News on the Night Shift, covering important news events today for the evening of March 28, 2019. As all eyes sit on the Gaza Strip, this is, of course, following this week's increase in tension after a rocket attack was fired into Israel, followed by a large Israeli military strike on Hamas targets, with sources inside the Strip saying that the situation in the West Bank seems to be deteriorating or heating up, following a series of incidents in which 5 Palestinians and 2 Israelis were killed in the past 2 weeks. Residents of the camp say that a paramedic was shot while he tried to treat a number of Palestinians. These Palestinians who were injured during clashes with IDF soldiers. They're now calling on international aid agencies and non-Israeli aligned government bodies to take immediate action to, quote, protect unarmed civilians in all Palestinian cities. Officials say that the IDF movement into Palestinian-controlled cities and villages are increasing tensions within Israeli prisons and within the streets. 2 objects that stand as a main reason behind a recent upsurge in violence within that area. We'll have to see where this goes now. That comes from one Gaza resident on social media. It could get worse or it could get better. But for now, I think it's going to get worse. That resident in particular expressed a need for personal preparedness in subsequent posts, where they mentioned having fuel on hand, candles for an extended power outage, what food that they could gather, and maybe, most importantly, at least for our community and this situation, a strong local group to find security in from criminal elements, those who seek to predate upon vulnerable people in times of distraction and a loss of control or the rule of law. In other news, seeking lab-grown meat as an alternative to naturally produced meat products, researchers, including a team of food scientists from Penn State and the University of Alabama, both in the United States, are actually using Lego pieces and simple motors to, quote, grow clean meat. To give an idea of how lab-grown meat, which we note is not meat at all because a meat is from a realistic point of view, is derived from a living creature and used as part of an omnivorous diet or carnivorous diet, is created, the electrical field that forms between a nozzle and a rotating collection drum draws starch into long threads. In wet electrospin, the drum is submerged into a bath of alcohol and water to help congeal the fibers. We have been able to align our scaffolding, they say, that could grow aligned muscle cells. This is from the researchers, as they strive to make steak that is no difference in visibility or taste to the human perception. Researchers from the university and from governments all over the world are seeking a meat alternative, and certainly there is a lot of propaganda and misinformation that says it is planet healthy for reasons such as greener meat and environmentally friendly future. But in reality, this very study produced the real reason why lab-grown meat is a drive for government and university bodies. This is a quote directly from the professor and the Director of Graduate Studies at the Department of Food Science at Penn State University. Starch is one of the least expensive natural fibers out there. In other news, economists are warning that the global economy is weakening at a time when other pieces of this puzzle of a collapse are in place. We could see a global economic fallout in less than 12 months. That warning comes from one economist who sees a shift in the global dominance of the USD and a favoring of secondary channels of trade and commerce. This, of course, leads some to warn that we will see the United States and its allies fall to second place if conflict does not stall the shedding of the USD as the global economic backbone. But that is on a global scale, regarding how the government of the world considers economic growth, of course, and dependency. Now, new research from Harvard University shows a picture of a local scale of economic difference with a new study that is being published in this month's Social Forces, showing that the gap between the rich or the ultra-rich and the poor is growing exponentially, to a degree that economists warn has already begun a self-serving prophecy of revolt that has empirically happened throughout history as the have-nots begin to notice the divisive ocean of difference between their current situation and the ultra-wealthies, undoubtedly increasing anger and feelings of retribution in the have-nots, and beginning a cycle of malcontent and discontent that has historically ended in violence. The study shows that in recent decades, the number of people who live in communities that are considered extreme poor or extreme rich, both ends of the scale, has increased threefold. And more than half of the change is due to increases in income inequality at the national level. In 1980, only 12% of the entire population lived in places that were especially rich or especially poor. This claims the author. By 2013, it was over 30%. So what we're seeing here is a polarization where people are increasingly living in places that are either extremely rich or extremely poor, poorer than the country overall. It's even worse now, they say. Humanity will seek resolution to this problem, warns one such economist. This has happened throughout all of history. The poor see the gap between themselves and the ultra-rich, and at some point in time, they realize that they are the many. This usually happens after there is some sort of suffering at a scale that causes hunger or pain to the poor themselves. This could be from a food shortage, or what we're seeing in today's world, in the modern world, an inability to get viable health care without premium payments being made, such as those that are afforded to the ultra-wealthy, who receive, of course, the newest and most expensive forms of life continuation treatment. When this happens, we will see anger represented through action, they say. That will be a dangerous time. Moving on, researchers in the United Kingdom are warning that a third of all wild bees and hoverflies are in a decline right now, in a dire look at the state of corruption and a reaction that has allowed chemical pesticides known to harm wildlife that are essential to food crop pollination to be used consistently for a gain of profit in the ultra-rich. Experts in the field say that, quote, every square kilometer of the UK has lost an average of 11 species of bee and hoverfly between 1980 and 2013, according to this new analysis. She warns that the pattern of biodiversity loss is happening everywhere that they look. It's a process of homogenization, she says, that leaves us with a natural world that is far poorer and less resilient to change. What kind of world will our children have? That question comes from one researcher. We should be focusing on a single plot system and requiring every single home to have a garden for food or plant growth, instead of investing billions of dollars into unnecessary technological change. We are responsible for the future, and we are watching it slip away. The facts presented remind our community here in the Awake and Aware of the importance of growing food now, getting used to the soil that is around us in our area, and preparing to grow crisis gardens for sustenance if a long-duration emergency takes place in our AO. A special thank you to each one of our Patreon members for making the news on the night shift possible and the afternoon news. We wouldn't be here without you, and a special thank you to you for watching. Today's News on the Night Shift is brought to us in part by MiraSafety.com, offering world-class gas masks and personal protective gear for civil, military, and law enforcement use. Use the code FSS10 to get 10% off of any order. And ESTgear.com, offering what has been called the world's most versatile multi-purpose shovel. Has 18 utilities in one. It's also been called the Leatherman of shovels. If you join the pre-order list now, you'll get 50% off of the launching price. As always, from Kelly and I to you and yours, please stay safe and keep watch.
Alrighty, let's see here. Thought that was funny. Dabu7's got a video here. Facebook charged with racial discrimination in targeted housing ads.
Well, the Trump administration is accusing Facebook of selling targeted advertising that discriminated on the basis of race in violation of the U.S. Fair Housing Act, seeking damages and unspecified relief for harm caused. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, said that its civil charge that Facebook also restricted who could see housing-related ads based on national origin, religion, familia, status, the sex and disability of an individual, and a lot of other little key factors that they get from swooping in and taking your analytical data, the same analytical data that they were selling that made Zuckerberg a billionaire. I personally think that there should be a huge lawsuit for the people, not just a couple rich guys over here that know a lawyer. I mean for the people. Where the people get a piece of the pie. Since he became a billionaire off of everyone's ads, I say everyone is entitled to a cut of what should be theirs. They used your information, for crying out loud. I don't care what kind of loopholes they want to jump to try to justify it. They will do that all day long. You're never going to get back what's yours unless you stand to fight for it. And when you see individuals out here like this being targeted by the Trump administration, it's like, okay, where's this really going to go? All too often you see these big headlines get brought up, but they walk. They get a smack on the wrist. Nothing ever really happens. We know the alphabet gangs are entangled in doing business with a lot of these platforms as it is. It's known. So what's really going to happen here? But at some point, something has to happen in terms of punishment for the individuals doing this stuff. You just allow them to keep on doing this, it sets a bad example through and through, and then at some point people are going to say enough is enough. How much are you going to allow Facebook and Zuckerberg and them to do and to get away with, from taking people's information to now getting caught up in racial discrimination? You ever notice when you post on there, try to post something, they come back and are like, $30 more and we'll boost your post? They've been doing that to me for years. That just tells me they took away my true reach and they're just trying to sell it to me. Pathetic. See right through it. Anyhow, I'll leave a link. It's been Dabu7.
Alrighty. Yeah, I mean, it's no secret they've been really manipulating everything. Not much of a secret at all. Okay, we got one from Shug Marie. Why not? It's titled Backpack and Boots. What to do with them hammock camping.
I'm Shug, and I'm talking to you. What I'm talking to you about today is your backpack and your boots when you're in your hammock. This is kind of a worry for a lot of new hammockers, but the question has come up over and over and over and over and over and over again about where you put your pack and your boots at night. So I wanted to say I've done a video on packs and boots before, but it was 2014, 2015, and what happens is new viewers ask the question. They don't want to go back into my catalog and look for it, nor do I. A lot of people worry about their boots if they just leave them on the ground at night, that a possum or some sort of varmint will come up and start licking that salt and drag that boot away. Now, that has happened to people, and a good way to possibly prevent that is take your boot laces and tie your boots together. What I did here is I put a couple of metal stakes in the ground, and you can just take your boots and it kind of wrap them around that stake like that. But what that's going to do is keep an animal from, dragging your boots off. But a lot of people worry about spiders and slugs and stuff getting inside the boot. Just take a sock, put your sock down in there, and just sort of spread that over the top of your boot like that. All right? Or just stuffing the sock in like that. Now, I happen to have some camp shoes with me on this fake trip I'm on, because I'm not going to use my boots in the night, and I'm worried that something is going to come and run off with them. But you take your boots, and you pretty much just flop them over your hammock suspension like that. Usually, I just leave my boots on the ground right by me. Why? Because I'm lazy. I'm lazy? All right, here's one more idea with the boots. I took these metal stakes I have and put them in the ground. But what you could do is go out in the woods, find yourself a couple of sticks, you know, knee high or whatever, and just pound them into the ground with a rock or another log or something like that. And then what you got is you have a little place to take your boots and hang them upside down like that. That way your boots are hanging at night. More than likely stuff's not going to get in there. They kind of air out, and that's a really effective way to secure your boots as well. So let's take a look at our pack now, and what are a couple of options with that.
When I've been riding my steed all day and I pull into camp and I hitch that nag on up to a tree, I got to figure somewhere to put my boots and my saddlebags. What I like to do is take my saddlebags and I like to unload them in a uniform manner and put everything in its proper place so it's protected in the night from varmints. That's the way I do it. You may do it just a different way. Never was good at that.
Yeah. When I get to camp, I just I park my mule and I dismount from my mule and I get my saddlebags, and I don't unpack them too good. I lay them on the ground and I kind of just work out off them that way. I don't really put anything away. That's what I don't do.
The same things apply when you're working out of your hammock. Everybody's style is different, so you got to think what kind of person you are, how you load, how much stuff you take out of your backpack at night. So when you're in your hammock, what do you need to access in the night? What are you going to reach down and get? Are you willing to get up out of the hammock to go get it? Or are you like me, the Lord of Lollygag, and want to be right in your hammock and reach down and get it without leaving the warmth of your nice down underquilt and top quilt? All right, so with your backpack here, what I pretty much have is my backpack hanging off my hammock suspension. Mine is just coming off my continual loop right there, and I'm using a stick. And that stick is just through my pack strap like that, just a pretty strong green stick, and it's going right through my continual loop. And that just hangs it right there. Or you can bring a beaner and hang it. Either way, that gets your pack up off the ground. So even if I'm laying in my hammock, my pack is right here, I can put things I need in a side pocket. I can pretty much lean back there and access that thing and get things pretty well without even getting out of my hammock. Now, I just happen to have a handy little knob sticking out of my tree right here, but Hickory actually carries a separate little strap that he uses just for hooking his backpack to a tree. So I could have this thing here. It's really at a nice height to work out of it for the day. My hammock is right there. If I wanted to leave it here and it rained, I'm going to take my pack cover and just cover the pack at night. So I always use a pack cover if I'm hiking in the rain all day, and it works out great at camp for hanging your pack against a tree at night. Gear hammock. Another great option, and I mentioned it in that last video I did on gear storage, is the gear hammock. It is a small hammock that just hangs right beside the hammock that you are currently laying in, enjoying the view, or getting ready to have, well, if you're like me, 10 to 12 hours of slumber. The gear hammock, right? I'm a pack on the ground guy, and I'm a boot on the ground guy. And normally at night I just take my laces and put them inside my boots, and I got them right there. And if I do not have camp shoes with me, these are what I'm stepping into at night if the ground is mucky. Sometimes in fair weather I'm sleeping barefoot. I just get up and go pee barefoot because that's usually what I'm getting up in the night to do. If I'm in doubt sometimes, think it's going to rain or there's too many critters on the ground, I just kind of take my boots and I just do them like that. Can a slug or a spider still get in there? Yes, they can. But good idea is with your boots, before you slip them on if you're barefoot, just give them a shake before you put your foot in there. you'll be thankful for that tip if you did not know that tip. So my boots go right on the ground. My pack will sit right on the ground during the day and during the night, and I always carry with me, and I have for years. It's always in my pack. This piece of plastic right here, I've had this now for 20-something years, and that would just normally go on the ground right there. And my pack just sits on it like that. So my pack is normally right by me. Occasionally I take a boot and I just put it right there by the pack to shim it up so it doesn't fall over. So in the daytime when I'm working out of my pack, I'm all in it right here. And at night when I go to sleep, same thing, I might have a water bottle jacked up under it or a small rat terrier. So when I'm laying at night and I'm here and I need to get something, I usually put my poop bag for in the morning. I'm ready to go for my morning constitutional right in one of the side pockets. Maybe a piece of clothing I might want to add in the night goes in the top. If it rains and my pack is on the ground, I make sure, just like with my tents, water can't get onto my piece of plastic down there. My pack will be under my tarp. And if it's a torrential rain, I either put my rain jacket or my pack cover over it, and it might be laying back on the ground. But normally mine is kind of sitting up like that. So then when I'm back in my hammock, and I'm kicked back, and I'm under, it's all right here. I got it all by me. Tarp will be pitched, boots are down here, camp shoes, and that's pretty much what you're going to do with your pack or your boots. Some form here or there, willy-nilly, of what I just showed you. Best way to find out about this stuff is, take it as an excuse to get out and camp more. Because you're only going to find your groove by getting out and doing it, and find out what kind of a camper you are and how you like to arrange your pack and your boots, or your, for those of you that use trail runners, same things apply. It's got to be very literal here. What I do at night is I loosen my laces at camp. I have the boot spread wide open, so when I get up, I don't have to fight my foot in there. I'm just stepping right in and staggering over there and taking a pee, and then staggering back, getting out of them, and getting back into the glory and the wonder of this hammock.
All secure in Sector 7. Woo, buddy! Woo!
Why so still, Bean?
Oh, you hate this. Oh, you don't like the Dyson, do you?
I enjoy watching his stuff. He's got a lot of information packed in a lot of times, and a lot of nonsense as well, and I'm all for that. So, oh man. Alrighty, well, I am going to go ahead and call it a night. I'm tired. Got up extra early today. Don't know why, just woke up, and usually when I wake up I can't get back to sleep, so ready to relax for a little bit. So I hope everybody has a good evening. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow to do it over again, and hopefully we'll see you there. As always, God bless you, we love you, and be one with your spirit.